they fell in love.
I couldn't envision.
Look at this. Debate night is travelling the length and breadth of Scotland in the countdown to the Holyrood elections. And tonight, we are in Ullapool. The Highland village is the gateway to the North West Highlands, a place shaped by fishing and tourism, including the nearby North Coast 500. But communities here say they're under real pressure, from housing shortages to fragile transport links and the rising cost of living. Tonight, we're joined by people from across this vast area who've come here to have their say. Welcome to Debate Night. Debate Night is the show where the people get to ask the big questions, answering them on our panel this evening. Torquil Crichton is the Scottish Labour MP for Nahelin and Anir. Before politics, Torquil worked in the media as a producer for BBC Alba and writing for several newspapers, including latterly as Westminster editor for the Daily Record. Marie Todd is SNP Minister for Drugs, Alcohol Policy and Sport. Raised here in Ullapool, Marie spent over 20 years working for NHS Highland as a mental health pharmacist before being elected to Holyrood 5 years ago as MSP for Caithness, Sutherland and Ross. Angus MacDonald is the Liberal Democrat MP for Inverness, Skye and West Rossshire. Angus joined Westminster after the last general election, but before that spent over 30 years as an entrepreneur running various businesses, including publishing, recruitment and recycling. He was also awarded an OBE for his services to the Highlands. Also with us tonight, Tim Eagle is the Scottish Conservative MSP for the Highlands and Islands. Tim is the party spokesperson for rural affairs, land reform and fishing. Before politics, he was a land agent and ran an arable and sheep farm in Murray. And finally, Father James Anyebu is known online as the TikTok priest. Originally from Nigeria, he came to the Highlands after learning about a shortage of priests here. He launched his social media account during lockdown to help young people with their faith, and now has 1.8 million followers online, and we hope lots of them are watching tonight. Please welcome them all to Debate Night. And welcome also to our studio audience here in Ullapool. It's great to be with you for the first time ever. And you can join in the discussion from home, wherever you're watching in Scotland this evening. BBCDN is the hashtag you need if you're on social media. And our podcast of the show will be available for you to download straight after the broadcast. We've got a lot to get through this evening, so let's get started. Our first question of the night comes from Archie Robertson. Archie, good evening.
With such strong public backing on assisted dying, should there have been a referendum to allow the Scottish public to decide?
Thank you, Archie. Surveys consistently show high levels of public support for assisted dying, but last night Holyrood voted against it. Again, 69 votes to 57, the third time MSPs have debated and voted on this issue. Marie Todd, the SNP, you like a referendum, don't you? Why not on this?
So I guess the first thing to say is this was a really challenging issue for every parliamentarian to engage with, and I know that I and my colleagues gave it a great deal of thought and really tried to understand all of the issues. I voted for assisted dying. I felt very sad that we voted against it. I think of all the people who contacted me, who were suffering, who were very keen for that change to happen. And I recognise that here in Caithness, Sutherland and Ross, opinion polling says that 76% of the population support it.
So should people get a say? Should we next have a referendum on this?
So I don't think, I'm not sure that a referendum would be the right answer. I do wonder with complex issues like this where the parliamentarians are out of step with the public, whether something like a citizens' assembly wouldn't help both sides to understand each other, where it would help the citizens to understand why some parliamentarians were reluctant, and it would help the parliamentarians to understand and perhaps feel comforted that this is what people wanted them to do. It is a challenging area. It's a very personal decision. I've met people from all walks of life with faith, health professional. I'm a regulated health professional myself. I voted for it. So it's a difficult one to preempt or to hand the decision over to other people. And I understand that people will feel disappointed.
Well, let me ask Archie, you asked the question. What do you think? Do you think it should be put to the people?
I think given that there's 70% broadly across Scotland that support it, based on polling, I think it should have at least been considered and maybe explained by politicians why it didn't happen.
Thank you. Slovenia did have a referendum on this. They voted no to it. In New Zealand, the people were asked there, but that was to rubber stamp a decision that had been taken by parliamentarians. Father James, what do you think? Should people be given a say on this? Should they be given a vote?
I think, so I work with lots of vulnerable people across the Highlands, and many of them desire to leave. Just a few days ago, I had one who asked me the question, am I dying? I didn't know how to answer that question because he truly desires to leave. He's vulnerable, he's weak, he's struggling, he's at the tail end of life, but he doesn't want to die. I believe that the people around him, may be getting tired of taking care of him, but he wants to leave. And he wants to be taken care of. So would taking his life be in my hands? I don't want to be that person that wants to vote that his life be taken away, or give it to someone else that his life be taken away because I get tired of taking care of him.
So your worry would be that people would feel some degree of coercion?
I believe so.
Torpo.
Thanks, Archie. Thanks for the question. I think we've had bitter experience of referenda and referendums over the last decade, which has left one side or the other disappointed. And I think to move forwards on something like this, you need consensus. You need people to come with you. And we live in sort of a representative democracy. Parliamentarians, MSPs debated this till late last night. We've had the debate in Westminster as well, where I voted against. And you could see the emotion last night that was involved in it. But you could also see that people had changed their minds as they went further and further into the debate. And while there were moral issues that Father James has outlined some of them there was also kind of legal and regulatory issues and constitutional issues almost about relying on another parliament to complete the job and finish the law. And I think that changed people's minds a bit as well. And it is emotional, it is personal, but those that are best able to present their case are the ones that usually kind of push this thing forward. And I thought there was a very telling moment in the debate last night. People say that Lorna Slater, the Green MSP, former Green co-leader, who gave testimony about her father's death, how he got assisted death in Canada. And it was very emotional for her. Of course it was, when you're speaking about your parents. But she said he was able to do that, to get that, because he was, in her own words, middle class, educated and articulate. And my immediate thought was, who speaks for those who aren't educated, middle class or articulate, who don't have the agency? The elderly who think they're a burden on their family, disabled people have been told that the cost of their care all their life is expensive and might feel some kind of sense of self-coercion, and not to mention what we talked about earlier before we came on air, a kind of misogyny and coercion of people in relationships where they don't have control. So for that reason and for others, I think we have to think about the people who don't have agency, who don't have a voice, and I think putting it down to a binary yes, no in a referendum isn't the way to discuss it. I think the debate started now with a debate on assisted dying. I think we need a debate now on the other side of that coin, which is palliative care and how we give people good care at the end of their life.
Thank you. Let me hear from the audience. Man on the end.
Excuse me. So my mum, she has Alzheimer's, and she's kind of in that process of leaving us at the moment. she's a woman of faith. My parents are both Catholic, actually. And for her, life is a sacrament, and she would never choose to end anything early, and that should be respected. But I don't believe it's too hard for us as a society to find a way for her to have that choice protected. But when it's my turn, I think I should have a choice too. I think we can find that as a society where we can have both.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us as well. Angus MacDonald.
So there are two things. There's coercion and the slippery slope, are the two words often used in discussing it. So we discussed coercion. On the slippery slope, in Canada, 5.1% of people who die every year have died through assisted suicide. And they have, you can have assisted suicide if you're a teenager with mental issues. So say severe depression. So where does it stop? That's the other side of the argument. Coming back to the bit about having a referendum, it's quite interesting, and intrinsically you would say yes, that makes a lot of sense. But we have, between us all and all the parliamentarians, sat through, years and years of debates with real experts from palliative industry and all sorts of things. And we're quite well informed about it, and you did see in the Scottish Parliament quite a big swing against it, actually.
Well, the public are well informed about their own lives as well.
Yeah.
So why shouldn't people have a say in this?
Well, funnily enough, I'm quite affected by it because my father died very recently, and he said to me, I don't really want to go into a care home. And I said, well, your wife cannot look after you. We cannot, the NHS Highland cannot look after you. And he said, well, if you all want me to do that, I will go. And I can just see that of people saying, am I a burden on you? Do you think we should end it? So that's my personal experience. The referendum's an interesting one, but oh my goodness, if you went through the hours we've spent on it, I think you'd be shocked by how much you had to learn. It's much more than you think.
Thank you. Tim Eagle.
So the first thing I want to mention, actually, is I don't think it's fair to talk about assisted dying without talking about Liam MacArthur, who did an outstanding job of bringing this through the Scottish Parliament. Only he, I think, could have done this in taking a cross-party approach, and I think it was right that he took this through. So I want to commend him for his great work. On the point of the referendum, so we did debate this, actually, at quite great length on Wednesday night. One of the SNP politicians put it forward as an amendment to the bill. I actually abstained on it because I was a bit, I'm not normally for referendums, certain referendums anyway, but actually I saw your point. I could see this argument and actually of getting the story out to the people and saying, look, we won't do this rushed. I think we'd have to get the information out. But there were these two critical points. One was coercion. It's impossible to legislate against coercion realistically, but actually we've all got to make a choice as to whether we have to accept some vulnerabilities within the bill in that sense. The other one, though, was the protections for doctors and things like that, and that required this Section 104 order, and that was the technical part of the bill as to whether you need to do it on that pan-UK level, and actually that was one of the things that I think significantly held it up. But I would go back to the point I think was made by Torkel at the end. Ultimately, we thought it would be 1 or 2 votes. Ultimately, it was bigger than that, and it was kind of bigger than that for a reason, because there were those concerns that we just couldn't quite get past.
Hands up in the audience. Lady in the second row.
So since the way forward now seems to be with palliative care, since the assisted dying is chosen against, what is that way forward with palliative care, and what are the next steps forward?
Thank you. Gentleman on the front row as well.
Yeah, well, I was just going to respond specifically on the idea of a referendum on this issue. I think the amount of debate that clearly has already taken place and the affecting stories on both sides show that it isn't a black and white issue. And that's the problem with referendums, is people are forced into, is it right or is it wrong? And clearly the conditions on which the legislation is brought in are really, really key in this instance, so that we can avoid the issues where it's wrong being an option, but still allow for it to happen when it is right.
Thank you. Your views from home on this. The hashtag is BBCDN on social media. We've got a lot to get through this evening, so I'm going to move on. Next week, we're going to be down other end of the country. We're going to be in Hoyk in the Scottish Borders. And then a little bit later on Sunday, April the 12th, we are going to be in Paisley for a special edition of Debate Night with the leaders of the largest political parties. If you'd like to be in the audience for either of those shows, go to the website. It's bbc.co.uk/debate night. Let's go to our second question of the night, which comes from TC Dutton. TC.
Good evening, panel.
Evening.
I'm here. Does the panel feel the Highlands should be allowed to be covered in dozens of wind farms and battery storage?
Thank you. We had a lot of questions in this space from you this evening. We're told renewables are the way forward for Scotland, but that requires generation infrastructure, storage as well, and pylons to move it all around. Torquil Crichton, does the panel feel the Highlands should be allowed to be covered in dozens of wind farms and battery storage developments?
Well, the reason we're moving to renewables is because we have to. The planet is on fire. From California to Australia, we get more fires here, and rising tides mean in causeways in my own constituency and the beach landing in Barra are becoming more and more limited. And the last time we did this major investment in the grid was 50 years ago. The Hydro Boys did it, here. And we're really starting very late to do this, so it's building big. And I think that it's an inevitability.
Torquil. You could speak to Ed. Energy's reserved issue. Plus we get charged to get put on the grid for the UK. You could maybe speak to your bosses down the road in London. Just an idea. It's daft that we don't have energy devolved. It's fucking stupid. We're fully renewable for our electricity generation here, and we're getting scalped. Yes, do the on and offshore and the battery storage up in the Highlands. There's great swaths of fucking Sutherland where you could put them, for crying out loud. You've got someone on the panel. Marie. She's the MSP for that area. There's entire fucking areas devoid of humanity. Not just Westminster. That we could be doing this. Yeah. One of the windiest fucking nations in Europe. It's a no-brainer doing more on and offshore and battery storage here in Scotland. It's just the vast majority of the population, like a huge percentage, Central Belt, down here. Some up the coasts, some on the islands. I think the stags and the sheep and the eagles and stuff, they'd be fine with the wind turbines. Just saying.
We have to do it, but I think that it's really important that we don't leave it to just multinational companies to profit from the wealth of wind, that we own the wealth of wind as well. We need the regulatory role of government. We need, yes, the muscle of private investment, but we need the consent and cooperation of communities as well. It's really important.
What benefits are we seeing at the moment? We drove here today past lots of wind farms. Yeah. What benefits are we seeing right now?
I don't want to see benefit. I want to see share. Every wind farm that's built, onshore, offshore, should have a community right to share. And that's what Labour has brought forward just in the last month. Our local power plan, which has 8 billion put to it to enable communities to get onto the grid, to get into wind farming. It's happening a lot in the Western Isles. We've got the highest concentration of community-owned wind farming in the UK. The local authority is negotiating with the two big onshore wind farms to take a 20% share. That would make us, that would give them 80 megawatts a day on an island chain that uses 39 megawatts. It also has the highest levels of fuel poverty in the UK, so we would tackle that and some more.
Okay.
But I don't think these things can happen without communities having a share in them, and when that power passes you by, the profits shouldn't pass you by. And the current compensation, which I think is £6,000 per kilowatt hour for communities around it isn't enough. It is enough.
Right, let's hear from the community here. Lady with the glasses first, yes.
Torquil makes some excellent points, but I would argue that there is not a cohesive plan about where these renewable developments should happen in the Highlands, and I have a deep concern that the Highlands are going to be covered in developments. If you take my Strath as a microcosm, we have 38 turbines in place that are operational. Terrific, that's great. I'm a great supporter of renewable energy. But there are further plans for 231 turbines as a total in an area that's 10 miles by 2 miles that surrounds a significant area of conservation. They're all in the catchment area of that support the critically endangered freshwater pearl mussel, which really are in danger of extinction from that. And I would argue that, yes, we do need renewables. Yes, we do need community ownership and also...
Hello, Mrs. Hello. Pearl mussels. Onshore. So, on the land. Last time I checked, I think the mussels live in water. There's plenty of areas we can be putting them. Trust me on that. There is loads of places. For Christ's sake, put them on Rannochmore. I've been on Rannochmore. There's hardly any. There's people living on the edges of it, but there's areas within that's on Rannochmore that you can put onshore on. Don't get me wrong, peat bogs and all that do exist up there, but there's plenty of areas we can be putting onshore. Yeah.
So profit from it, but there is not a sensible plan on where they should be located. There is not a cohesive understanding of what is happening across the whole of Scotland, because it's not just the Highlands, it's elsewhere. The Borders, for instance, are very much involved in this.
Okay, thank you. Man in the tartan shirt down here as well.
Hi. We're currently paying like the highest energy rates in Europe, really. I mean, as far as electricity goes. I mean, we were promised free power when the hydro came in the 60s. I mean, this is something that people forget. I mean, the hydro came here a long, long time ago. And they flooded the place and promised us free power, and we never got it. So I can't see any difference just now. It's all just like, well, we need to do this and we need to do that. We should be paying less for our electricity.
Okay.
Because we're producing it all, and it's destroying our land. We destroy our tourism, the way things are going to. And if we are going to get recompense for it, it needs to be sufficient. It needs to be for everyone. It needs to bring industry back into the area as well. Because if we have cheaper electricity, that's something that would do that.
Right. Thank you, Marie Todd. Where's the benefit for local people here and what's going on?
I think the reason there's a huge level of objection to wind farms in the Highlands is that we are not feeling the benefit. We are paying. We are generating a surplus of green energy here in the Highlands, and we are watching it being transported from here down south, and we are having it sold back to us at a higher price. There are lots and lots of homes in this constituency living in fuel poverty. Lots and lots of households living in fuel poverty.
Lots of people here reliant on oil for heating as well.
Exactly, and that's an outrageous injustice in such an energy-rich country.
Prices doubled in just the last few weeks.
So the oil is the fact that we're all off-grid means that we do not have mains gas. So we pay already here in the Highlands, we pay 4 times more to heat our homes than they do in the Central Belt. Many of us are reliant on heating oil. Heating oil is a kerosene-based fuel, and the price of that is very volatile. It is very linked to the conflict in the Middle East. So in the few weeks since that conflict broke out, the price has doubled, nearly tripled in some parts of the constituency. And people have to pay a minimum fill. You have to get 500 litres. If your tank is empty, you have to pay many hundreds of pounds in order to heat your house and to heat your water. And that is all happening in an energy-rich country. So I think the reason that people are feeling so upset about all of the signs of energy production around us is that they are not feeling the benefit. We are living in fuel poverty. Tim's saying to me we're in charge of the planning process, but energy is almost entirely reserved to Westminster using the planning process, and there is a planning process in place which helps us to make decisions. It takes into account the issue of cumulative impact. We can look around us. There is space where wind farms could go, where they would trouble nobody. So we have to use the planning system to site these farms in appropriate places, but we in the Highlands must benefit from that energy.
Okay. Angus MacDonald.
I was on the Highland Council Planning Committee, and I would say we will look back in 20 years and say it's exactly the same as happened to our oil. So we are generating 10 times more electricity in Scotland than we use, and we're exporting that to no benefits. So the turbines are manufactured offshore, substantially owned offshore. We get £6,000 a megawatt guidance from the Scottish Government, which is new, which is half what the Highland Council called for.
But Westminster could mandate that.
This sounds like an argument for independence.
In 2014, well, hang on, I'll come back to that. In 2014, the Scottish Government set the guidance.
In 2014, people in Scotland were asked, do you want to be in charge of everything in your country, or do you want to leave some things in the hands of Westminster?
Anne-Marie,
Scotland voted to leave some things in the hands of Westminster. One of those things was energy.
Okay, we know that, Marie. Thank you.
It's my turn. You've had 12 years and you haven't increased that guidance figure. 12 years. If you just increased it by the price of energy, it would be over £12,000.
And
turn.
Scotland.
Hang on. Oh dear. Yay! Rejoice, comrades, Divinia. Hello. I'm doing not bad. Yeah. I don't know what's happening here. Oi, oi. Right, my dashboard. He does, doesn't he? Give me a minute, I'll bring it back. It's debate night. Yeah. Yeah, I know I'm live. Go. YouTube. Oh. Mute that. Yay! Give me a minute. I'm doing okay, thanks. If a little cold. Oh, 3 degrees here. Yeah. Is it mild there? At least that's better. Oh,
Seen us another triangle. Love.
go away.
Electricity in Scotland than we use, and we're exporting that to no benefits. So their turbines are manufactured offshore, substantially owned offshore.
Yeah, I've got bookmarks.
We get £6,000 a megawatt guidance from the Scottish Government, which is new, which is half what the Highland Council called for.
But Westminster could mandate that.
This sounds like an argument for independence.
In 2014, well, hang on, I'll come back to that. In 2014, the Scottish Government set the guidance.
In 2014, people in Scotland were asked, do you want to be in charge of everything in your country, or do you want to leave some things in the hands of Westminster?
Anne-Marie,
Scotland voted to leave some things in the hands of Westminster. One of those things was energy.
Okay, we know that, Marie. Thank you.
It's my turn. You've had 12 years and you haven't increased that guidance figure. 12 years. If you just increased it by the price of energy, it would be over £12,000. Now, I'm not defending the Conservative Party or the Labour Party.
Where's that money coming from? For us to be able to do that. And then we don't have full control up here, by the way. Most of the energy policies are reserved matter. We don't have it. Plus, we're down on funding. The block grant is down from the austerity that Tories inflicted on us.
Party who did sod all about it. But we're generating all this. Total community benefit.
Hang on a second.
Total community benefits in the Highlands last year, £9 million.
Okay, all right, okay.
That's all.
Marita?
So can I ask you, Angus, which parliament can mandate for community benefit? Which parliament can mandate for that?
So you can do guidance, because you've done it once, and
your parliament that you
can use the planning system to stop nuclear power. Yeah. Why can't you use the planning system to enable community ownership?
Okay, let me hear from the audience here, because there's lots of hands up. Man in the green sweater first here.
Hello there.
God, Torquil, you fucking wank. There is no point in doing that if we can't actually fix the price and the way we actually do the energy infrastructure up here. We don't have full fucking control. You know that. Talk to your boss in the Department of Energy. Or even better, go to your bastard leader. Give us full control of bloody energy policy. Then we can do all that stuff. We can do some of it, but without the other controls, there is no effing point. Oh, these wankers. I'm going to explode, I'm sure of it.
Yes, 2 points. When the communities say no, Highland Council says no, Scottish Government overturns that. So that, you know, that's not right. Secondly, there are only 10% of Munros left in Scotland that you cannot see wind turbines from. That is a national disgrace. There is appropriate place. There's an appropriate place for renewables. It is not at the destruction of Scotland's heritage and its landscape.
Thank you. Man on the end aisle, up at the back, yes.
We've got more and more wind farms coming up here all the time, yet the national grid charges us, the north of Scotland, the highest rate for transport of the electricity out of the country, and it's coming back to us, and we're having to pay higher rates than anybody else has done. Down in, it's what London and that get charged less than a third than what we do, and yet we're having the wind turbines looking out our windows on the hillsides and things like that, but we're not getting the benefit from them because we're still getting charged far too much for them.
On the standing charges, thank you. And gentlemen on the second back row. Yes, on you go.
I'll need to be careful, I might get lynched. I work in the wind industry, and I know dozens of guys that are employed, and women, in the wind industry, between being technicians, asset managers, etc. So it is giving a lot of work to the area. I'm from the West Coast. And I actually moved down to about an hour away, down in Muirvord. And what I'm disappointed with seeing is so many wind farms getting extended on extension on extension on extension, and more houses getting built in these small corners, whereas the likes of Ullapool and Gairloch's where I grew up, the school numbers there are down below 30% and falling. That's less than half what it was 20 years ago when I was there. Why are we not looking at improving the grid infrastructure to the West Coast, Gairloch and Ullapool, more than what's happening at the moment? It's happening out to Skye and Lewis. If there was a good infrastructure in Alt Bay, Gairloch area, there'd be the possibility of getting wind farms, and people would be against it, and I understand that, but you look at a lot of small communities that are getting £250,000 every year from the wind farms and community funding. The local hall is an 80-year-old Nissan hut in Alt Bay. This is what we're fighting with.
Yeah.
You know, wind farms can be great for areas. The community funding and community shared wind farm and ownership, I know very little about it. It sounds great, but people should be careful in just going, oh, wind farms are a disaster for an area. It gives hundreds, thousands of jobs across Scotland.
What a fascinating insight. Thank you for that. Tim Eagle, is the root at the centre of this to the problem?
Wow, an actual someone that works in the wind sector. Cool. The engineers that I know are in transmission, so they actually deal with the grid infrastructure up here, and they think it's daft that we get charged this much. I will keep on repeating this until I'm blue in the face. We overproduce our electricity, all by renewables. I hasten to add, all by renewables. And we're getting scalped up here. The poor bastards in the Highlands are getting robbed blind, essentially. It's fucking ridiculous. Ugh. I'm losing my mind. Fuck.
And the fact that our infrastructure is so antiquated when it comes to moving power around the country. It's not geared up for what we're trying to do right now with renewables.
Well, you could say that, though I would point out that the two massive pylon lines that SSNE are looking at have been very heavily objected against. But I think the point for me, the critical point here, is I'm not arguing against renewables, but I don't think you need to build every single one of them on the hills of the Highlands. And that's the point that I think the community is saying to me. And I've had loads of emails on this. I mean, it's way beyond health now in terms of the level of emails we get. One of my colleagues, Councillor Helen Crawford, I don't know if everybody knows her, but she's been leading a huge amount of work. She's done 2 conventions across loads of community councils right across the Highlands, and has come down to Edinburgh recently to talk about that. And I myself am fighting a project in Murray called the Murray Flow Park. And what frustrates me about that is this is a company from London that came up, they secured a contract with the Crown Estate, they got 1.8 million of public funding before anybody had discussed that with a single person on the ground. And then suddenly a fisherman finds out and says, and you've got the Scottish Fishing Federation that are saying, we can't cope. Fishermen are being squeezed and squeezed and squeezed. And now they're saying, we need a moratorium on offshore wind until we can get some sort of compensation package in place. And traditional industries can actually have a voice. And I just don't think the people have got a voice in the current planning system.
All right, let's hear the voice of the people. Man with the glasses, down here.
I met with the developers for the West of Orkney wind farm a couple of years back and asked them about the community benefits. And the chap told me, he says, oh, we've got this off pat, we're talking football tops, flower pots and benches. There was no recognition of the problems the North Islands have. SSEN are spending £22.9 billion upgrading
I think you might be, darling.
But on the West Coast and Islands, we still don't have three-phase electricity. The Hydro Boys were in the 50s. That was when Tom Johnson put that act in. if we want to turn the Highlands around, particularly the West Coast and the Highlands, we need to look at the infrastructure projects for the next decade and get three-phase to these communities, coastal communities. Then we can have enterprise and stop the begging bowl approach when we're looking for funding to keep our schools open and build houses and create jobs.
We should have energy policy, completely. His hair migrated from the north to the south. Quite funny. You know what? I didn't actually do my shout outs. I'll do them now. Oh, you can go down there. Taps went live.
jobs.
Thank you. Torpo?
I think if
There
you
we
give
go.
communities power,
Oh.
if you give communities power and ownership of
No,
wind
no, no.
farms, like there are some examples where
I keep on forgetting, because numpty, I keep on forgetting to go into the Discords, 4 or 5 of them, to say, I'm live. Because me be numpty, obviously. So I was just putting in the link to my Twitch, primarily. Brody? Brody! I think we might be getting a Brody in soon. Eee. No. I was in Discord saying, come on over. Torquil. I will keep on saying this until you fucking hear me all the way up in Oliverpool. You could talk to your boss. Oh God, I never actually checked. Yeah, I've got people in YouTube. Loris, Dalian, hello. I didn't see you, the two of you there. Hello, Sly Loris, Rejoice Comrades, Sly Loris in YouTube. And Dalian Haynes. Hello, welcome in. Torquil Crichton. Oh. Labour MP for Nahil Nashar, the Western Isles. I will show you them after this. I'll show you where his constituency is. So he's down in Westminster. Talk to your boss, Torquil. Just an idea.
Spend 60 million on their own wind farm.
my own district and point, you know, £1 million comes in a year. It's used to
Oh,
kind
God.
of insulate homes, you know, look after old people. You give communities ownership and power. They stop being a begging bowl. They become masters of their own destiny.
So what needs to happen to make that a reality?
I think we have to use planning law, and I think we have to enable communities. I mean, there's some people who said they want.
Talk to your leader. Fuck it. Say in the Scottish office or something. Give me a minute. Torquil. No. It's Wikipedia. There we go. I think he was born in Lewis. Oh God, Angus MacNeil was the MP before him. Fucking hell. Who's Gaelic podcaster? Oh, he went to Knock. It took the oath of allegiance in Gaelic. Wow. Doesn't he say if he's in any of the departments? Oh. Sean Gaillard. Some more remarks. Oh. Wow. Okay.
Want to know more about it. I think we use the muscle of GB Energy. We set up GB Energy to drive through this renewables project. I think a large part of that money ought to be spent on enabling communities to get onto the grid, on building up the muscles of communities so they can negotiate with the big companies. There's no point being a small council going up against the sharks of multinational lawyers. You need your lawyers lawyered up and regulated up and tooled up on your side as well.
Do you want to come back in on this?
On planning, Highland
We
Council,
don't have
planning
those
department,
controls, God damn it, you
there's not
stupid
enough
Labour
planners.
bastard.
And the planners they do have are working on renewable energy projects at the moment, rather than community-led housing developments.
There should be a national strategic move to kind of back up planning departments, back up communities
they can't get enough
to ride
planners
this
in.
revolution.
They
Because
can't get enough
we don't
planners
want to
in.
be steamrolled by this thing. We want to ride the wave as well and be in charge of it.
Father James, you moved here partly because of the beauty of the Highlands. How do you feel about it being covered in dozens of wind farms and solar developments, battery storage development?
So it's a webcam, a standard camera, a storage camera, and one a couple of other things in it as well. So yeah, Super Hubby went mad and thought, fuck it, your webcam on your laptop looks naff, and went and bought that. Say thank you, Super Hubby, for being nice to me. So yeah, it looks good, doesn't it? When I first put it on before I go live, it's the full screen. It always kind of gives me a little bit of a jump scare seeing myself. Full face. Rejoice, comrades. Natok. Hello, Natok.
Yeah, certainly. I moved over to the Highlands, and one of the things I enjoy moving over to the Highlands is the beauty of the Highlands. Traveling from Bewley to the west coast to Ullapool to Puliu, Gairloch, Lochinva for the past close to 10 years now, traveling through these roads. I've always enjoyed my journeys, and however, I have constantly seen the cities being depleted. People are moving away. People are not staying. Why are they not staying when all these things are there? You know, electricity is going high, cost of living is going high, but these renewable energies are there. These turbines are all there, and they can generate wealth for these communities. They can generate jobs for these communities, but they are not getting it. And since they are not getting it, so what is the need for it to be there? And I think these politicians are able to explain why, you know, these things are there, but the communities are not getting the benefits of it.
Thank you. Man on the side down here. Yeah, and you go.
The amount of power that's produced and exported is not putting any money into the local community, or very little. Yeah? That money should be increased because the power's being generated here, but renewables work much better if they're closer to the people that need the power. So instead of building it, covering the whole of the Highlands with wind turbines, build the wind turbines closer to the people that are going to need the power.
Thank you. We'll come back to zonal pricing in a second, but man on the back row first, yeah.
I was born and raised in Ullapool my whole life, and I was brought up with Ullapool was started as a fishing village. We see boats now that aren't going to sea because they can't afford the fuel to go to sea. We're changing into this world where we need electric vehicles. We're looking at wind farms across the road and all our hills, but nobody can afford to drive their vehicles with the oil. Now with electricity going up through the roof, and we've got this across. It's places like this are just getting destroyed because of these multi-firm agencies when it's all on our doorstep.
Thank you. And man right in the back row, right in the middle.
Correct. Yeah.
So far we've only been mentioning wind farms, but there's other forms of renewable energy that are available as well. I remember speaking a few years ago to folks that were trying to build a renewable energy tidal flow between the mainland and Orkney, and eventually I think it stopped.
Yes, someone mentioned tidal. I'm not screaming into the void on my own. That barrier is still ongoing, by the way. They're working on it. It is looking promising, very promising. You could put tidal barriers in the Pentland Firth, so that's between the north North Sea, the North Coast, and the Orkney Islands. So that's called the Pentland Firth. And you can whack them in there. It wouldn't be interrupting the shipping. All the vessels that use parts of the Pentland Firth, they're fine. They go round. So they leave Aberdeen and they go round that way and up into the islands like that. So the one between, there's ferries, don't get me wrong, there's ferries that leave like from the north coast over to Orkney. But you can put barriers there. And there's other ones in the North Sea, and there's ones that you can do in like the Minches and stuff. So that's the ones on the west coast, like between the islands and stuff. Darling! Boom. Rejoice, comrades. VMod. Hello, Shanna.
Because of the price of putting the energy back into the grid. Although, I mean, like there, you've got the tidal thing. It just keeps going. You know, we always know what is going to happen. But we couldn't get the energy back into the grid at reasonable prices, although the project was within 20 miles of the Dounreay.
Tidal's guaranteed for centuries. So, what causes the tides? It is the lovely, lovely silvery orb you see in the night sky. So, that's one of the main contributors to the tides, the way the tides work. We have tidal charts, like books of them, for centuries into the future. So doing tidal, please make me stop screaming and start doing it. A lot of my green comrades, when I go to like conferences or on Zoom calls or anything like that, they can see how animated and passionate I am about this. And I would keep on saying to them, just give us our energy policy, devolve it. The fact that it's a reserve issue is daft as fuck. Yeah. Good luck, my darling. Keep me posted. Is it nearby? I can't remember. You drive, don't you? Good luck, my dear. I want it to heat up. The stiffness in my fingers is annoying me. You both drive, right?
Reactor that we're now shutting down. That seems a little bit. Somebody's lost sight in the planning there to me.
Thank you. Marie Todd, just on that zonal pricing argument that people should pay less where power is generated, should we revisit that? It was discounted, but should we look at it again?
So I think in general we're paying far too much for our electricity in the UK. That's because the Westminster government, who's in control of energy, chooses to hitch our electricity price to gas. And that's why we pay so much for our electricity.
So the way it works over here is called the marginal retail price. So we're fully renewable. You're going to get fed up of me talking about this, by the way, the closer we get to the 7th of May. Sorry. Tell me to stop banging on about it for at least a few minutes at least, if you want. So the price of our electricity is tied, it's pinned to how much we pay for gas, for fossil fuels, for energy production, so that'd be gas stations essentially to generate the electricity, which is stupid as fuck. Renewables are cheaper. so we pay a higher rate. I like the idea of zonal pricing. I'd want to de-link it completely, and our electricity costs up here for people like me and people like Idiosyncracy and like that, and I can't give a duck. All of us lovely Scottish comrades that you know, our energy price would drop. But because it's pinned to how much we pay for our gas, for our fossil fuel, either for heating purposes or electricity generation, we're getting scalped. Fucking, my family, my mum and especially my niblet, they see how mad and how angry I get about this. My lovely niblet, they look at me and say, "You okay there, Auntie Katie?" No. We're getting scalped, darling. So what do we need to do? Get energy policy from Westminster. Or decouple it from the price of fossil fuel. Or here's an even radical idea. Nationalise it. That's what I'd want to do. So it would be in public hands. And we can set the price. Chances. Even if we do get energy policy and we bring it into public hands, I'm not entirely sure how that would work. But if it looks like that might happen, I will do research into it. Plus I've got people who work in that sector. Lucky me. Actually having expertise at hand is always good. Yeah. Imagine it. Energy infrastructure and energy generation in public hands, just like our water. Ah, a girl can dream. Played. Thank you.
We in the whole of the UK pay amongst the highest prices in the whole of Europe, and yes, boy do I believe that we in Scotland should benefit from the low-cost green energy that we are generating.
So is zonal pricing a way to do that?
So I think there are challenges with zonal pricing. I think that the industry needs certainty in order to invest. There are all sorts of challenges. What our proposal in the SNP is, with independents, cut your bills by a third, because we'll unhitch the cost of electricity from gas.
Torquil? Who'd pay for the infrastructure then? I mean, the infrastructure, the
well, we would. We're paying for it.
Sly Loris, I love you. Yeah, they all should be in public hands. Because they're for the public benefit. Just like water. Energy, mail, connectivity, transport. Like, I want the council here in Glasgow to have transport. I want to tell First Glasgow where they can go. Out of Glasgow. Yeah, they are. Yeah, they're there to make life better for us. Easier. Yeah. The fact that our energy's in private hands is stupid and it's horrible. And I will keep on saying this, we're getting scalped. Breathe. Play.
Currently, it's our tax.
Damn it.
Across the UK, everyone's paying for it. Everyone's paying.
Your views from home on this? The hashtag is BBCDN on social media. Let's go to our third question of the night, which comes from Stephen Whitlock. Stephen, evening.
Thank you. The NC 500 has brought huge tourism to the Highlands, including Ullapool.
How can governments support communities to benefit from that success?
Thank you, Stephen. We are right on at the North Coast 500 tonight, a controversial route that has brought hundreds of thousands of additional visitors to this area every year. With that comes economic benefits, but also pressures for the people who live here. Angus MacDonald, how can governments support communities to benefit from that success?
Well, one very topical issue at the moment is tourist tax. And at the moment, camper vans and campers and day trippers, you know, the minibuses that travel around from the day from Inverness and Glasgow, etc., they will not be paying the tourist tax. And yet the people who are staying in the hotels will be paying it. So I think that's the wrong way round. And people say, well, it's difficult to do, but actually with license plate recognition and the carnets which you get when you go into Europe suggests that you could track that. So I'm sure it could be done.
You've got average speed cameras on the A9.
Average,
so
that would do it,
must
yeah.
be doable.
Yeah, and then I suppose the other thing is if we're going to pay the tourist tax, it should stay in the area where it's raised. I think one of the big problems is the money from the West is going into Inverness, and Inverness is pretty prosperous and the West is not.
Marie Todd, North Coast 500, asset or liability?
So I think on balance, I mean, this is a village that it may have been built on fishing, but it's got a long history of hospitality as well. And having visitors come to this village is a really important industry for us, and we kind of pride ourselves on our Highland welcome. We've got amazing produce. We love welcoming people. We're all very proud of where we come from. I think the challenge is that the communities, much like the energy, the communities aren't feeling like they are benefiting from the asset that they have. We feel, particularly over the course of the pandemic, when we had some very antisocial behaviour in visitors who came here, we are feeling like people are coming here and using our homes. This is where we live, using our homes, and we're gaining nothing. So I think there needs to be a balance on that. I think the visitor levy can help us to raise money, raise income for infrastructure that supports responsible visiting. So I think that's reasonable in that way. I agree with Angus. I think we need to think about future legislation that captures camper vans, that considers cruise ships, and I think we probably need to revisit that and extend that piece of legislation. But I think it's a good step forward, raising money from visitors to this area in order that we can invest in tourist infrastructure, and it's less burdensome for the people who live here to have them visit.
Tim Eagle, does the North Coast 500 feel like something that's being done to the people here rather than with the people here?
So that... You can see the answer to that, I think. So I was going to say, so I was up in Caithness not long ago, actually, and there is some great businesses that are springing up on the back of North Coast 500. So in that sense, I think it's a great thing. But I think Highland Council need to listen far more. Where there are problems, I think they need to address that, and they're not addressing that
What are the problems?
Well, so many camper vans coming, parking on the sides of roads where they shouldn't be, litters being put up. We've got all manner of other things that are being tipped out, and that's not good enough. And you're right, actually, the original visitor levy legislation should have included camper vans. Now, what you've got is this really weird situation now where actually a camper van or a camper that goes into an official campsite will pay, but actually if you park on the side of the road, you don't. Well, what's your incentive to go in and support local business? But also, the Visitor Levy Act was rushed at such speed that we're now debating it again tomorrow. So I will be in a debate in Edinburgh tomorrow afternoon debating an amendment to the Visitor Levy because businesses couldn't cope with it. And the final point I will make, one of my amendments tomorrow, and I hope it is backed, is if you are in the Western Isles, if you are living in Caithness and you need to travel to Inverness for a hospital appointment, you will pay the visitor levy. I think that's mad. I mean, I just cannot accept that we've allowed a law to come into place. If you need to travel for a health reason, there should be a national exemption. I'm putting that forward tomorrow, and I think that needs to get into place because it's not right you should have to pay the visitor levy.
Thank you. Man in the front row down here.
So whenever the NC500 is mentioned, the kind of big plus point is always the visitors that will come. But of course, that's not how the NC500 is marketed. It's marketed as a road that you drive around and you're independent and you're self-sufficient in your camper van, which is exactly the kind of visitor that doesn't benefit the local communities. And so, I mean, as Angus and others have said, it should be those people that are paying some kind of like a toll road tariff rather than talking about visitors as being taxed, because we do want more visitors and they do bring benefits, but just not the type that are marketed and are attracted by the concept of the NC 500.
Thank you. And lady just down on the second row here. Yes.
Yeah, I would kind of agree with what you just said. Sometimes, as locals, we need to go down to Inverness for things like medical appointments. Yep. If you have to do that in the summer, it can be like wacky races, and frankly, the experience is terrifying. So it's not just about business coming into the area, but thinking about how safe do you actually feel on our local roads when there are camper vans and people who don't necessarily know how to drive them.
Yeah, thank you. And lady...
She's got a point. Some people are horrible drivers. Some of them can be downright dangerous. It's one of the main reasons. None of the drivers that I interacted with were that dangerous. They were just stupid. Don't get me wrong, you can make a mistake and things can happen, obviously. But that was one of the main reasons I stopped driving when I moved down here. Too many nutters, essentially. And we're talking over 20 years ago at this point. Fuck, nearly 30. God, I hate getting old. No. Yes. Oh. I can't make out your name. Give me a second, I'll go in my YouTube chat.
Towards the back.
Yes, I said you're a resident in the Highlands and your only vehicle is a camper van, but you're just going on your everyday business. Oh, but if I wanted to go on a holiday and stay in the lovely Highlands that I live in, would I still be paying the visitor levy?
Yes. Torquil Crichton, there's a tricky one for you.
Yeah, I think, you know, there's a popular demand for a camper van tax, you know, pure VW camper drivers. And I think I think that needs to be aired. There are issues with the locality, as Angus has highlighted. You could have Sky.
There's ones other than the VW. Just saying, Torquil. By the way, he's 61, so I can understand why he would have said that one. It's probably the one he saw the most when he was a young man, 40 years ago. Oh, where you park, it depends on where you park up. It's £5, £5. So, I don't know, $2 or $3, something like that. My van sounds like Muttley. I cleaned it earlier on, and it's still not sounding good. I need to get like one of those little fan blowers, no, like the little one that you use to clean your laptop and your cooler. So he said to me, he said, as long as it's not too much, I can get it for you off our next universal credit, which will be the 26th, which is in a week's time. It's next Thursday. Tibbet! Rejoice, comrades. Tibbet is here. Hi, Tibbet. Fan for a fan. Welcome in. Great to see you.
Hi there. 10,000 people, 1 million visitors. You know, it's real, that's over tourism. But then if there's a tourist tax on that, would it be spent locally? So there's a responsibility and imperative on central government, the Scottish government and UK government, to strategically invest in these hotspots. And I think as well as a tourist tax or a bed tax, we have to consider what's happening around us. You know, a lot of this is driven by location filming and, you know, things becoming iconic on TV.
Well, debate night, you're not going to blame us for it, are you?
No, but I think you should have things like a Game of Thrones tax. So we also give,
right.
you know,
well, leave us out of it.
We give tax breaks to film companies to film in locations, but film companies should, or serious TV companies should be obliged to leave a legacy there for obviously the tourists that are going to attack. And the other thing we have to remember is that we are both victims and perpetrators. If you want to see mass tourism, stand in the aisle of your next EasyJet flight. and look at yourselves. We do it too. We do it to other places. And I think we have to be responsible tourists ourselves and find ways of responding responsibly to tourism in our own areas.
Thank you. Father James, I don't know how many of them end up in your services when they're visiting here in camper vans, but what do you think we should be doing about this, getting the balance?
Yeah, certainly. The church is one of the beneficiaries of tourism, because I know that whenever we travel to places like Puliu, especially during Christmas, during the summertime, some tourists, find it comforting that the church is open around the area, and ourselves, we benefit from their presence as well. And then here in Ullapool as well, we benefit from their presence. Mine is to ask who would benefit from taxing these people, from taxing the camper vans and the visitors and the tourists. We don't want to chase them away. We want them to keep coming to experience the beauty of the Highlands. And
people here have got to see the benefits of that.
Exactly. It has to be, the benefit has to be the people here. And there needs to be more infrastructures to keep people coming over to the Highlands. And especially in Puliu, those areas, you mentioned Altbay, Lochinvar, those areas, they need to see the benefit of these taxes. And we need the roads as well, don't we? Yep. We need the roads to keep, functioning. I traveled through Altbay to Ullapool, to Altbay to Bewley on Sunday, and I tell you, it was horrendous. I was struggling with my tires. So the roads needs to be fixed, and the ways needs to be made clear so that people could easily travel. And when these things are put together, people can come in, they enjoy it. If you ask them to pay those taxes, they'll be willing to do so. And the people living here would also benefit from it.
Thank you. A gentleman with a beard. Yeah.
There's a myth around the camper vans that they pull into Tesco, fill up with fuel, fill the groceries and don't spend a penny. If you're spending £1,000 a week renting a camper van, the last thing you want to do is park yourself in a lay-by and have yourself a wee sort of microwave meal if you're lucky. They are spending in gift shops and excursions and all sorts of trips. There was a survey done about 4 or 5 years ago. For 8 camper vans, we're spending £300,000 a year, over the 6 months of the season. So it's not all just take. There are people who are spending significant amounts in our communities and keeping our shops open, our restaurants and cafes and bars.
Just hang on a second. There's a lady who's got her head in her hands just behind you there. You don't agree with that? You don't see that?
Always sees the mess.
Yeah.
That's always sees the mess left behind. In Lochinvar, the people can't even park to get to the doctors because they can't get parked because of camper vans.
Right. Turn round, sir, and speak to that lady. Go on.
In Lochinvar, I work for Aston Development Trust, and we put the Cludgy project, which was to clear up this mess because people were dumping stuff at the side of the road because there was nowhere else to put it. Nobody wants to spend.
Cludgy's an old Scottish word for toilet. It's called the cludgy. So basically, it's quite a fun name for basically to help clean up the area. That's one of the ways I can see the tourist tax or the room occupancy levy getting used to help maintain, beautify, make it look nice, keep it clean, upgrade it a bit maybe if they wanted to. So that's what I'd be using that money for. So wherever the tax is getting raised, keep it there. Ullapool, Inverness, Bewley, Banff, Buchan, Oban, Nail and Shire, so that's the Western Isles. Keep it where it's raised to help maintain and keep clean the area. So, more tourists. I didn't realise it was that amount that was getting spent by people in camper vans. Wow. That's a lot. Yeah.
A fortune on holiday and having to tip their chemical waste out. So at great expense we spent that money in it. And if the infrastructure was built, If the NC500 had come to Highland Council and said, we've got this idea for a route, please spend 20 million on fixing lay-bys and parking places and what have you, they'd have told them to sling their hook. It's only now that we actually have to realise that this is going to keep coming. We can't stop the NC500, and the numbers are insignificant. The Amalfi coastline has 5 million visitors a year driving on those roads. We have a couple of 100,000. If the infrastructure is suitable, it wouldn't be a problem for us, and it would keep those jobs going.
Not convinced. Your views at home on all...
Wow, based beardy. Dude. Now, wouldn't it be fun if his name was Bob, so I'd be based beardy Bob? I don't know what his name is. Excuse me. Sorry about that. So where this levy is raised, keep it there, so all that stuff can get done. Makes sense, doesn't it? We've got the room levy here in Glasgow. No, like there's hundreds of hotel rooms here, hundreds. It's a good fucking question. How many hotel rooms in Glasgow? You know what? I'll use my phone for this. Give me a second, everyone. Put that up a second. How many hotel rooms in Glasgow? Holy fuck! There's 12,000. Oh, 12,000. Wow.
Well, the hashtag is BBCDN on social media. Right, we've got time for one final question this evening, and it comes from Julian McQuaker. Julian, hi.
Should there be more done in order to keep our younger people in Scotland's remotest areas? For example, employment opportunities, mortgage or rental support, just to try and keep these, particularly coastal communities, going and thriving?
Thank you. Fascinating question, Julian. We're in a school this evening in Ullapool. The majority of Highland schools will see pupil numbers fall in the next 10 years. Some are operating even now at 30% of capacity. Father James.
Yeah. Thank you. That was a very good question, because since I came over to the Highlands, I've seen lots of young people leave. And the last time I saw some left, I was really devastated, because I thought I was building something with them. And then suddenly one came to me and said, Father, oh, I'll be going to Glasgow. The other one, I'm going to university in Edinburgh. And I was like, why not choose UHI? UHI is there. Oh, I'm sorry, because there is nothing really happening within the Highland for them to stay. So it's a very good one. And I think there needs to do more. Traveling from Glasgow, Edinburgh to Inverness is a very long journey. And once they leave, they don't want to come back. They feel like this is not a place for them. So we need to do more. There needs to be more. Infrastructures needs to be built. UHI actually needs to have more cars given, especially also...
University of the Highlands and Islands. Fucking hell, sorry about that. So there's a campus, there's a campus up from where I am here in Glasgow, in my home city of Perth, so which would be south of where they are tonight. So there's campuses dotted all about the Highlands and Islands, aren't they? One just outside Oban. There's a couple on, I can't remember what islands they're on. But there's campuses dotted all over Scotland for this university. The way it's structured is fucking amazing. I need Brodie for this one. Brodie, where are you?
to international students so that UHI can grow. I see places like University of Edinburgh, University of Glasgow, University of Aberdeen, and Robert Gordon. They have lots of international students coming into these places, and because of the money they pay to these universities, they are able to expand and grow. I don't think that UHI has got such, with them. And then places like these highland places, like, Ullapool, like Bewley, like Pullieu, I'm not seeing a young person growing up there and wanting to stay back or coming back even after their university. So I believe there are lots of infrastructures that needs to be built in these places for these people to stay.
Thank you. Torquil Crichton, you know about this because you left, didn't you? You left.
I left. I've come back now, slightly older and hopefully wiser. But what I've learned in becoming a politician, becoming MP for the Western Isles, the biggest issue we face is depopulation, for sure.
The biggest issue?
The biggest issue is depopulation. And it doesn't present itself in funerals, because the dead don't talk to you, but it does present itself in young people, young parents coming to you and telling you they're leaving because they can't get childcare.
Yep.
And one of the quickest, easiest fix is childcare, and to get a proper provision for 0 to 2-year-olds and 3 to 5-year-olds, so that young couples can live and work here.
Scottish Green Party policy. Childcare, major issue within the party. Big discussion. Big. Good luck with your solitaire. I'll be here. Don't worry, darling. Yeah, childcare is a massive issue, especially for like his constituency, the Western Isles, up there in Ullapool. It's an issue all over the country, not just Scotland. But it is quite major. So that's right. It's one of the major policy platforms for the Scottish Greens. And doing that would actually help. Would be a good factor to help them stay here. Maybe expanding university, doing more campuses might be an idea. Infrastructure, obviously, and building houses. Build more council housing. I don't know. So many areas. Yeah. Can I get my country, please? I think I could run it better than some of these bastards.
Secondly, I see from my own experience is that we do get people coming back after university and graduates and really talented people.
There are jobs for them?
Well, there are jobs. They're usually project jobs, so they get hired in a project, local history project or environmental project housing. They spend a year setting it up. They spend a year running it. They spend the third year reapplying for their own job. They get to another 2-year project, 3-year project. That comes to an end. They're now in their late 20s at a time when they want to get onto the mortgage ladder. They can't because they're on project work. They're thinking of settling down. They ship out. We cycle them out. So we should think long-term in terms of having young people here. And the third thing is housing. And there are long-term fixes and quick fixes. And one of the quickest, longest-lasting fixes is Crofter housing, the Crofter Grant and Loan Scheme that kept people in my constituency across the Highlands and Islands for 3 decades is being run down by this government and needs to be readdressed and needs to be readapted for the 21st century so it doesn't just cover croft tenancies but gives young people grant and loan and low mortgage to set up home here.
I think Highland Council have announced 3,300 affordable homes by 2028, including 95 here in Ullapool itself. Let me hear from the audience. Lady on the back row first.
Yeah, thank you. So this ties back to what we were discussing at the last question about tourism, and I was going to raise a point then. I think you need to talk also about tourism, how it affects the price of housing, because housing has actually become an investment object rather than a place to live. And also we've become so reliant on tourism, but it's completely seasonal. All the work is over the summer, and in the winter there is no work. This place becomes a ghost town. It's no wonder that young people leave, because there is no work in the winter.
Thank you. Man in the black top. Yeah.
More or less the same point. It's absolutely natural that young people want to go and spread their wings and experience the world, but there's plenty of young people who would come back, but they just can't compete with the other people who are coming in, buying houses for investment properties,
second homes,
Airbnb, etc. They cannot compete with that. There's no relation.
Housing is a human right. Having a roof over your head, it's rather good. Yeah. Anything that can save me from living, well, I wouldn't be living with my mum. She'd probably help me, if anything happened, she'd probably help me get a council house up in Perth. And I'd, no, I want to stay down here in Glasgow, thanks.
Between salaries and housing costs, and something needs to be done to address that.
Thank you. And Mr. Wind Farm, the second back row.
Yeah, there's millions getting invested, as we discussed earlier on, billions into the infrastructure and energy, and most of this is around the north, the east and the south and the central belt. All the west coast, or most of the west coast, Gairloch, Ullapool, Pooh, all the way up to Kinloch, Bervie, all the schools are around 30% and less, and that's because there's no investment going into jobs in these areas. I think there's a small number of houses getting built, possibly in Ullapool affordable housing. There's nothing that I know of around Gairloch, Alt Bay, Pooh, and like I say, all these areas they've dropped more than 100 kids in 20 years. The school numbers are halving, and they're going to, in about 10 to 15 years, I looked at a graph, it looks more like Gairloch High School could be, shutting. And that's really, really sad for these areas.
Yeah. Marie Todd.
Yeah. So I left here when I was 17 to go to university, and I got back to the Highlands reasonably quickly, but it took me till I was nearly 50 to get back home to Ullapool. So I absolutely recognise that how difficult it is for young people to live here. The issue of depopulation is...
Why aren't millions getting invested where the school numbers have dropped that much? You're saying you understand it. Do you understand it? Because the school numbers out here are down in the 20s and 30%, and you've got, Wick, Thurso, they're up 80 to 100%. Dingwall, Inverness, these schools are up to 80 to 100%. You're saying that you understand it, but why are you still building more homes and investing a lot more money and allowing private companies to be building a lot more where there's already full schools and good infrastructure?
Okay.
So I am absolutely advocating for there to be more houses in the West. Scottish Government funded a depopulation officer who largely has spent time finding pockets of land that they can build, particularly community-led housing on all the way up the West Coast and all the way across the North Coast. We have actually not enough people to do the jobs that we need doing. So frankly, our problem here is unbalanced communities with an ageing demographic, and there's not enough young people to work.
You're creating good jobs in some areas and you're not in others. Like that's what I've got a problem with, is giving a lot of good work to the Central Belt and the East, and there's not the same happening over in the West.
Okay, so job creation.
There's not the opportunity.
Okay.
So I think job creation is a really important issue. I think you spoke earlier around the potential around renewable energy. I would like people here to feel the benefit of that industry, frankly. I think we could make the transition from what is quite a low-wage economy traditionally in the Highlands up to a high-wage economy. We also, that's not the only thing we need though, and that's the challenge. So we do need childcare, as Torquil says. We made an announcement last weekend that we've already invested in doubling the entitlement to early learning and childcare. I was the minister who delivered that. We are now going to go further and ensure that there is childcare available for children from the age of 9 right up to the end of primary school.
We're running out of time.
Can I make the point?
Very briefly.
Can I make the point, though, that many childcare services here in Northwest Highlands are not sustainable because there aren't enough children in the village.
Okay,
having a broader range of ages coming will help.
You've been an entrepreneur. How do you make jobs here? How do you create jobs here?
I think our kids are not being taught enough STEM, computing, mathematics, physics. UHI does not teach technical courses outside Inverness. So we need that taught in Ullapool, Portree, Fort William.
What's that difference going to make to depopulation?
A huge difference, because if you work on those subjects, you make £10,000 a year more than the average person.
UHI does agricultural sciences. I should know. I've checked out their prospectus. So they do like animal husbandry, veterinary, that sort of area. wildlife management, those kind of degrees. So, Angus, you're talking bollocks, mate. Mm. The main STEM ones are here. Yeah. Like my one, University of Strathclyde. It's one of the best biomed labs in Europe. Yeah. Glasgow for like medical, dentistry, other sciences, chemistry, physics. Physics as well over in Edinburgh. And more technical ones. Robert Gordon has got a good engineering unit. So does the one here. We've got the Naval College here in Glasgow as well. So naval studies, essentially. So anything to do with like shipping, navy, things of that nature. So a lot of the STEM ones that he's talking about, they're down here in Glasgow or over in Edinburgh or up in Dundee. Life sciences, so biomed, nursing, those kind of things. So Dundee's great for those ones. That's where my sister's doing her degree to get her band 7, so she has prescribing powers. Carry on, my dear. Carry on. So they're because of history and things like that, they're like most of the humanities ones are across the Central Belt as well.
You have a better chance of getting a decent house.
OK, Tim, you go.
Well, I mean, I think there's lots of great housing, childcare, all of this matters. But the fact is we've got a rural development, a rural depopulation plan, but there's no actions that are really coming with it, and there's no money that is coming with it. I would say that there's critical infrastructure needed, so I think the A9 and A96, they do need to be dualled, because that will mean people can get out. But actually, it's this whole package that we need to deliver, and we're just not delivering that at the moment.
In short, what we need is what the man was saying, we need political will to do it.
OK, yeah. Father James?
And we need Highland solutions to do it, so we need flexibility on childcare rules so we can take over kids.
Okay. Yeah.
For us to do that properly, Torquil, you need to devolve a couple more powers to us. Speak to your leader, or go to the Scottish Secretary.
Yeah, one of the difficulties, because I spoke with some persons, I speak with, the ordinary people, and one of the difficulties they face is transporting themselves from places like Olapo down to Inverness.
£2 bus fare cap.
From Inverness, they transport
no
from
problem,
Inverness to Fortrose and back. And then someone told me just today that, to get to NHS, to do blood tests, they had to go to Inverness to do it, or to Dingwall, and not in Fortrose or in Cromarty. So some of these things would cost that person to leave the Highland. So imagine how many buses come to Olapo, and if a young person lives in Olapo and they don't want to be driving, and we are talking about also the climate change and the rest of them. So how do we, mitigate the use of private vehicles and then provide buses and trains and all things that move people around the Highlands?
Let me just hear, man with the glasses in the second row.
I just feel there needs to be tighter restrictions on things like Airbnbs, because there's thousands of houses across the Highlands, and most of them are Airbnbs, and families are dependent on those houses. So we need to tighten up those restrictions and let those houses be used for the ones who need it, these young families who are driven out of the Highlands because they can't get housing.
Great. Thank you very much indeed for your views on that. The debate continues on social media. Hashtag is BBCDN. That's it for tonight. We'll be back next week, other end of the country. We're in Hawick in the Scottish borders. Have a look at our website if you'd like to come along and join us there. If you missed any of tonight's show, we're repeated on BBC One Scotland a bit later, or you can catch it any time that suits you on the BBC iPlayer. Thank you very much indeed to my panel here tonight and a brilliant audience in beautiful Ullapool, and to you home for watching. We'll see you next week in Hawick. In the meantime, stay safe, stay well. From all of us in Debate Night, good night.
God. I'll put that one on. Oh God, Lord Orford. Oh, fucking hell. Numpty.
To find out what they've learned. So the Scottish election study had a briefing about all of the interesting things that are going on with voter behaviour going into the Scottish election in May, and we sent along a reporter to find out what they've learned. So basically this is a project, it's run by partners at the Universities of Edinburgh, Glasgow, Cardiff and Southampton. It looks at attitudinal and behavioural data to help us understand the key issues that are driving voters ahead of the polls. So we heard from Professor Ailsa Henderson and Fraser McMillan on their findings, and we've picked out 5 things that we think you might be interested in. So, number 1, and maybe not particularly surprising, but Reform UK are very unpopular with Scots. Scots were asked to choose the party that they most dislike, and 41% said Reform, more than double the number who said the next party, which was the SNP, on 19%. 61% of people said that they would never vote Reform, and that was ahead of the Tories on 52% and the Greens on 41%. So, yeah, quite intriguing that the Reform are even more unpopular than the Conservatives in Scotland. Didn't know if that would be possible. Number 2, young women are flocking from the SNP to the Greens. There's been a 23-point jump in support for the Greens among women aged 16 to 24. Meanwhile, men are moving to the right with a 31-point jump in Reform support among men aged 45 to 54. Number 3, it's expected to be a low turnout election, perhaps the lowest since 2003, which was less than 50%. Number 4, tactical voting is expected. With Reform being so unpopular, lots of people are going to be deciding who to back based on who could beat them. It's not really clear yet how this would benefit like the SNP, but it's a big change from previous anti-SNP tactical voting trends, so maybe it could work in their favour. And number 5, and again, this one's not so surprising, but the SNP are expected to win despite traditional orthodoxy, suggesting that 20 years in power would be highly unusual. The SNP keep bucking the trend. One of the reasons for this, according to the study, is because Scottish voters believe the SNP are, quote, standing up for Scotland more than any other party by a substantial margin. Steph, that was a bit of an information dump, but I wonder if there's anything that particularly surprised you in there.
I mean, I think the most interesting thing is about the young women voters, isn't it? Mm-hmm. I mean, the amount that are flocking from the SNP to the Greens, that's really interesting. I think, seeing just here now, I think I can understand it. I mean, first of all, there's a young woman at the head of the Scottish Green Party in Gillian Mackay, relatively young. So I think that makes a difference. You know, you've got, no offence to John Swinney, but he is an older man. So it just, from image terms, and some of the things perhaps that Gillian's spoken about, things like buffer zones over time, perhaps that's contributing to things. Maybe the GRR issue has damaged the SNP a bit. There were obviously a lot of concerns around protections for women's spaces in that kind of debate space. So, and I think the SNP have been around for a long time, and I think that the Greens are seen as exciting at the moment. They've got this kind of, I don't know, there's some sort of energy around them in both Scotland and in the Green Party of England and Wales, and that's because Zach Polanski's bounce is obviously affecting the whole kind of movement and the image of the movement. So I found that really interesting. The low turnout thing I also thought was quite intriguing. I mean, I suppose what that shows and what some of the other findings show is that this election is about who you don't want rather than who you do want.
Yes.
And that it feeds into the tactical voting as well. So I suppose, because there's a certain amount of apathy, but I think there's also a certain amount of who do I vote for? Like, there's no party that speaks for me. So the people that are turning out, the few people that are going to turn out, are the ones that are trying to just stop who they don't want getting in. Yeah. So it's kind of a weird kind of energy around this election, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, we know that people feel disenfranchised. Like, frankly, people are quite scunnered with politics. I mean, cost of living going up again. We're seeing another illegal war unfolding in the Middle East. We're going to all feel the consequences of that on our bills and on our wallets. Housing is in a mess. People feel that public services have declined substantially since the Tories came to power. Of course, our public services are mainly devolved, but there's a knock-on effect from the funding decline. People don't trust Labour. Of course, we've got the most unpopular Prime Minister on record, who has done things that really damage support among groups like pensioners and among young people when it comes to foreign policy. There's just so many different reasons why people feel like, oh my God, I'm just not going to engage with politics anymore. It's not for me. What are they doing for me? And I think partially this relates to the Greens thing. People like hearing people like Zach Polanski and to a degree the Scottish Greens talking about, improving public services through taxing the extremely wealthy, because that sounds like fair, that sounds like equality. Yeah. This is not the kind of language that we hear from Labour. And so I think that is kind of getting people feeling like, oh, look, there is a party out here who maybe want to do something to help regular folk and make the big wealthy people pay their fair share. That's definitely getting people excited. And also they're willing to speak out against UK foreign policy decisions, not only on Gaza, but on general issues like the export of weapons to UAE, or in fact, kind of Starmer's approach to allowing the US to use military bases here. And again, these are things that are quite new to the conversation. Yeah. They're not new for people who believe them, but they're new to being heard in the mainstream media, right? So one, I think that is a big part of what's driving people, especially younger people, towards the Greens. And two, it shows the kind of lack of interesting ideas on the wider political front. I think there's definitely not that many exciting policies that people want to get behind. I mean, what's Labour's big policy right now that people want to talk about? Or what are the Tories' big policy right now? Yeah. To a degree, it's why people go towards the reform, just because they're offering something different. Yeah. I don't think everybody who wants to vote reform is like a terrible person or like a huge racist or something like that. And they're also disenfranchised by the whole system not working for them. And ultimately, that is driving the low turnout. But I mean, if they can, the SNP especially, can motivate their voters who are really concerned about reform coming to power, then maybe that they can get lots of folk back out. But at the end of the day, people are just looking at politics on the whole and thinking, this is rubbish.
Yeah, and I think people feel powerless as well. I mean, you spoke about there, we've got the most unpopular Prime Minister ever. And people are thinking, well, why is he still there? Like, what am I supposed to do about that? He's been through all these scandals, all these crises, and he's still somehow there. Like, and I think people feel like, what can I do about it? And, when Labour got voted in, they clearly, it was a shallow vote, wasn't it? It wasn't, they weren't popular in the first place. So you've got people thinking, well, I didn't vote for them in the first place, and they got in. Now they've been through all these scandals and crises, and they're still there. What am I supposed to do? Like, as just a little person in society. So I think people feel like that. it's interesting what you say about reform, because one of the findings that we spoke about was that they'd kind of hit their ceiling a little bit. And I think that one of the things that the SNP have got to focus on is focusing on policy, because I think that Reform have now got to that stage where if they're going to be seen as a serious party, a party of governance, they really need to focus on policy and actually coming up with some robust ideas that can really convince people that they're more than just a protest party. They're more than just an anti-establishment party. Anti-establishment.
Or they can just do a competition to pay for someone's energy bills. That's I couldn't possibly legally say that that's bribing people to vote for you, but I would say it certainly has that feeling.
It does have that feeling.
Technically, you can't do that. Technically. Elon, can you hear me? Fucking twat.
That's what they've got. They've got stunts, really, rather than specific workable policies. And the reform money off of your petrol as well. That was a few weeks ago, wasn't it? They took over the petrol station.
It's always simplistic little things that they can just go, here you go, this is what we'll do. Mm-hmm. But it's got no basis to it. It's got no kind of there's no explanation for how they're going to do it.
No, and the competition part, so for those who aren't aware, Reform have launched a competition it's basically a data mining exercise. Put your data into this website and one lucky person is going to win their energy bills paid, and then we're also going to pay for your street as well, your whole street. So they'll probably be hoping that the person who gets pulled out of the draw lives on a very small cul-de-sac and not one of the longer streets in Britain. But the whole point of it is clearly just to get headlines and media attention. And because with Reform get into power, they obviously can't pay for everyone's bills. They're not going to do that for everybody. And this is how they keep themselves relevant. They do these kinds of stunts and they get people talking about it. And there was lots of discussion as well yesterday about the whole data mining element of it. Mm-hmm. I mean, so many people maybe aren't engaged in politics. They aren't familiar with what Reform are all about. And they're just going to stick their details into this website in the hope of getting their energy bills paid for. Who could blame them? Because energy is so expensive and it looks like it's going to just continue going up in the current circumstances, and that's really cynical. It's really cynical of them. It's playing on the most vulnerable people in society, really, and then hoping to turn their disenfranchisement, their feeling left out in the cold, maybe even literally left in the cold because they can't afford their energy bills, into support for them and their support for far-right politics. It's really bleak when you think about it.
Yeah, it is really bleak, and it is just kind of an excuse for there's a lot of rich people in Reform, and it's kind of, it seems like an excuse to me to flash the cash a little bit as well.
Absolutely.
I couldn't help but think that when I saw it.
Oh God, well,
yeah, depressing.
One. Oh my God. go. Marked in the diary. So Holyrood, Senate and English local elections all on Thursday, 7th of May. 7 weeks. So next Thursday is when it will be called. That's when the Holyrood and the Senate will get prorogued. Then your standard media rules kick in. You have to be balanced towards all the parties. There we go. There we are today. Look at pretty diary. Oh.
Please, Mr. Speaker.
Prime Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our deepest condolences are with the families and friends of the 2 young people who've died following the outbreak of meningitis B in Kent. Others are seriously ill, and this will be a deeply difficult time for their loved ones. Mr. Speaker, health experts are working to identify close contacts and distribute antibiotics, and will begin a targeted vaccination programme in the coming days. And can I take this opportunity to ask anyone who attended club chemistry on March 5th, 6th or 7th to come forward, please, to receive antibiotics? And Mr. Speaker, yesterday President Zelensky addressed parliamentarians. Many people were there, and I had the opportunity to reaffirm to him that no matter other international events, the UK support for Ukraine will not waver. I also welcome Prime Minister Carney and NATO Secretary General Rutte to Downing Street for further discussions on international security. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I first of all associate myself with the comments and the condolences made by the Prime Minister regarding those people affected by the meningitis outbreak. New data today shows that nearly 60% of hospices are considering cutting frontline services. In the West Midlands, St Giles Hospice has already reduced beds and reduced staff due to financial pressures. So with services being cut, can the Prime Minister explain why hospices are being told to wait until autumn for the new framework, and will he commit today to proper long-term sustainable funding to secure this vital lifeline for the future?
Prime Minister. It is important that the funding and the framework is put in place, and we support the work of hospices and doing everything we can to support them. Dr. Brea Timble.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
My constituent Caroline from Grenoside told me that since December the cost of her heating oil has nearly tripled from £257 to £700. Local farmers I met last week also raised their concerns that the oil industry has not been properly regulated, disadvantaging off-grid customers. Whilst I welcome the government's £53 million support package that was announced for rural communities, will the Prime Minister confirm how disabled people, vulnerable and low-income households can access this support, and how he will improve regulation of oil to bring down the cost of energy bills?
Prime Minister. Well, can I thank you? My first instinct is always to protect people from the cost of living. The immediate action we've taken in relation to those that heat their homes with oil is the 53 million that we announced this week. That's particularly
That sounded, that was worded suspiciously like a moron McSchemy question.
important for rural communities and, of course, Northern Ireland. But de-escalation in the Middle East is the quickest way to reduce the cost of living. And anyone in the Middle East is the quickest way to reduce the cost of living. And anyone who advocated for the UK to rush headlong into the offensive without a clear picture of what it meant for our forces, or without thinking through the economic impact for families, should stand up and apologise.
Leader of the Opposition, Kemi Beno.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister tried to avoid scrutiny on the Mandelson files by releasing the documents immediately after Prime Minister's questions last week. So let me ask him now. Did the Prime Minister personally speak to Peter Mandelson about his relationship with the convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein before appointing him as our ambassador to Washington?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let me start where I must. This was my mistake in making the appointment, and I've apologised to the victims of Epstein. I do so again. The government is complying with the humble address in full, but we are also continuing to support the police in their investigation. The matter of process was looked at by the independent advisor on ministerial standards. It's clear the appointment process wasn't strong enough, and that's why I've already strengthened it. But it was my mistake, Mr. Speaker, and I've apologised for it. She should follow suit and apologise for a gross error of judgment in calling for the UK to join the war in Iran without thinking through the consequences.
Mr. Speaker, I know he doesn't want to talk about the documents he tried to bury last week. He's going to try and talk about anything else, but he's not going to get away with it. I asked him a question he did not answer. We know the Prime Minister was warned about the risk of appointing Peter Mandelson. This is not about the process. He knew that Mandelson stayed in Epstein's house after Epstein had been convicted for child prostitution. He knew that. So I will ask him again. Did he speak to Peter Mandelson about this before the appointment, yes or no?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I've already made clear that he was asked questions and gave untruthful replies. The government is complying with the humble address. The process has been set out. The independent advisor has looked at it. And he said, quote, the relevant process for a political appointee was followed. Now, obviously, this is a question of my judgment, but what about her judgment? She wanted to rush into a war with Iran without thinking it through. At the weekend, Mr. Speaker, three weeks in, she said, oh, there isn't a clear plan behind the US strikes in Iran. That's the question she should have asked at the start. The decision to commit the UK to a war is the biggest decision a Prime Minister can take, and she got it completely wrong.
I I didn't hear an answer, Mr. Speaker, and he's right, it is about his judgment. He has repeatedly told us that Peter Mandelson lied to him, but he won't tell us if he actually picked up the phone and spoke to Mandelson before appointing him. This doesn't make any sense. The Prime Minister told us on the record, and I quote, "I believed the lies he told me." If the Prime Minister didn't speak to him, how can he say he lied to him?
Prime Minister. Speaker, the process is clear. It's been looked at by the independent advisor. And she asked me about the process and judgment on appointments. She appointed the Shadow Justice Secretary. He said last night that Muslims praying in public, including the Mayor of London, practising his faith, are not welcome. He described it as an act of domination, straight from the Islamist playbook. If we're in my team, he'd be gone. It's utterly appalling. She should denounce his comments and she should sack him.
He wants to talk about Justice Secretaries. His Justice Secretary is abolishing jury trials. My Shadow Justice Secretary is defending British values. I know who I would rather have sitting on the front bench next to me, and it's not him.
Prime Minister.
But Mr. Speaker, this is important. He does want to talk about anything else except what I'm asking him. 3 times I have asked him if the Prime Minister spoke to Peter Mandelson. 3 times he has refused to answer. We can only assume he did not speak to Peter Mandelson. From the documents published, we know he left the questioning of Mandelson's relationship with a convicted paedophile to 2 of Mandelson's closest friends, one of whom was also friends with a convicted paedophile. Asking those questions should have been his job. Why did he fail to do his duty?
Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, so her position is that the Shadow Justice Secretary is defending British values when he says Muslims praying together in Trafalgar Square are not welcome. Mr. Speaker, even Tommy Robinson, I can hardly believe I'm saying this, has said today that if the Shadow Justice Secretary had made these hateful comments 2 years ago, the Conservative Party would have kicked him out. Now, Tommy Robinson isn't some sort of moral signpost. He was pointing out how much their party has changed. They're more inclined to his views, and he's right about that. The fact that he's sitting on her front bench shows she's too weak and has got absolutely no judgment.
The Prime Minister wants to talk about my leadership. I'm shocked because his former deputy has just fired the starting gun on the race to replace him. And I'll tell him one thing. She and I both agree that this weak man should be replaced by a strong woman. But I'm not finished, Mr. Speaker. I have too much to say to him. There is still a lot to ask. There is still a lot to ask about the Mandelson files. There's still a lot to ask. The Prime Minister knew that Mandelson had kept up a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. The documents released also show he'd been warned about appointing Mandelson. He claims he was lied to. Mandelson had twice been fired for dishonesty. So why did the Prime Minister believe Peter Mandelson over the vetting documents?
Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, she asked about leadership. When I see religious events in Trafalgar Square, when I see Hindus celebrating Diwali, when I see Jews celebrating Hanukkah live, when I see Christians performing the Passion of Christ, or Muslims praying, that shows the great strength of our diverse city and country. I've never heard her party call out anything other than the Muslim events. It's only when Muslims are praying. The only conclusion is the Tory party has got a problem with Muslims.
Can I just say, people say, I am not responsible for the answers. I've just got to say that.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a shame he's not responsible for the answers either. The Prime Minister wants us to believe that he is a serious leader, but he doesn't do the work. He outsources the decisions, and when things go wrong, he blames the vetting, he blames the Chief of Staff, he blames the Cabinet Secretary, he blames anyone but himself. This Prime Minister appointed Peter Mandelson, but didn't bother to ask the questions. If he cannot be straight with the House on something as simple as this, why should we believe a word he says about anything.
She talks about doesn't do it. 3 weeks ago, she said we should rush into war. She didn't do the work. She didn't think through the consequences. Committing our military to a war without thinking through the consequences is the gravest mistake a leader of the opposition can ever. And she comes back a week later and says, oops, I got that one wrong. She's utterly irrelevant and she's got no judgment. This is the leader of the opposition who said I should have empty-chaired the most important NATO summit in years. This is the leader of the opposition who said Greenland is a second-order issue. And this is the leader of the opposition who jumped into a war with Iran without stopping to think. On top of that this week, the failure to condemn and sack...
Order. And I will repeat again, I'm not responsible for the answers, but it's certainly not opposition questions.
Mr. Speaker, add to that the failure to condemn and sack the Shadow Justice Secretary for the poison and division that he spreads. It's turning out to be quite a month for the leader of the opposition who claims she never makes any mistakes.
Mr. Speaker.
Sorry, please. Claire Hanna.
We've seen this play out before, a US rush to military escalation with no plan for what comes next. We've seen schoolgirls bombed in Iran, whole families killed in Lebanon, chaos in a region already scarred by repression and genocide and economic shocks that hurt the most vulnerable at home. In Irish, there's a phrase, Ní altar and Sianach we go, have we learned no lessons? People are asking exactly that. How many times do these horrors play out before the lessons are learned? The Prime Minister has said that the US will not be drawn into a wider war. Will he guarantee two things, that that position will hold in the face of mounting pressure from Trump and Netanyahu? And can he guarantee that this House would get a vote before the UK involves in any further conflict?
Prime Minister.
Unlike the leader of the opposition, my principles have been clear and unwavering. We will protect our people in the region. We will take action to defend ourselves and our allies, and we will not be drawn into the wider war. I want to see this war end as quickly as possible. Mr. Speaker, the longer it continues, the bigger the impact on the cost of living. And that's where we've intervened to support households with costs of heating oil. The best way forward is a negotiated settlement with Iran giving up any aspirations to develop a nuclear weapon.
Sir Ed Davey, leader of the Liberal Democrats.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I join the Prime Minister in offering my condolences to the family and friends of the two young people who've been killed by the meningitis bug in Kent and all those affected by this horrifying outbreak. Mr. Speaker, Britain's independent nuclear deterrent is critical for the defence of our nation and for the whole of Europe. But the current Trident missiles will reach the end of their lives in the 2040s, so we have to make a choice now. Lease new missiles to the United States, accepting whatever terms the President gives us, or build our own here in the United Kingdom. Well, the Conservatives and Reform say we have to rely on President Trump and the United States because we couldn't possibly do it ourselves. Does the Prime Minister agree with them?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our independent nuclear deterrent protects us every day, and we should never forget how important it is. And it is
not independent. Did you not just hear Ed? We lease them and they maintain them. If we need them upgraded or fixed or anything, we have to send them over to an American dry dock. It is not independent. So you're talking bollocks there, Keir. It's not independent in any way, shape or form, everyone. I am fed up of saying that. Trust me.
important that we renew it. We will do that in the best interests of Britain. I mean, he's openly advocating a plan which he doesn't know how much it would cost and how it would work. That isn't the way to deal with our independent nuclear deterrent.
Sir Ed Davey.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm surprised at that response. The French can do it. Does the Prime Minister really think Britain can't? But moving on, Mr. Speaker, a New World investigation into GB News has found hundreds of shocking breaches of the rules of impartiality and accuracy. Yet Ofcom has repeatedly refused to take action. Andrew Neil says, just as Fox basically became the channel of Donald Trump, it is clear they have turned GB News into the Reform channel. Mr. Speaker, we cannot let GB News propaganda turn our great country into their version of Trump's America. Either the government rules aren't fit for purpose, or Ofcom isn't properly enforcing them. Prime Minister, which is it?
Prime Minister.
Well,
for all intents and purposes, especially where this area is concerned, Ofcom are toothless. Toothless. They could beef up their powers. They could. Lisa, can you hear me? By the way, it's DCMS that does that one, so it'd need to be Lisa and Andy. Get your minions on that. Give Ofcom some teeth.
He's right to raise an important question of free speech and our media. It is a matter for Ofcom, and it's important that we let them deal with it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Violence against women and girls is a global emergency. It's a key concern that we discussed at last week's United Nations Commission on the Status of Women. Social media platforms are promoting and profiting off vile online misogyny. It's made its way onto playgrounds, workplaces, relationships, and even our politics, harming women and girls and exploiting young men and boys. In the manosphere, everyone loses. Can I ask the Prime Minister what this government is doing to tackle the harm being caused by hateful forces online?
Prime Minister.
Can I thank her and the others who attended the UN Commission for the Status of Women event? We are committed, Mr. Speaker, to halving violence against women and girls wherever it takes place, whether that's online, offline or on our streets. That includes banning deepfakes, tackling non-consensual intimate images and abusive vile content online. And can I say, Mr. Speaker, following up from last week, I was deeply concerned that Travelodge cancelled their meeting with MPs. I want them to put that right and put it right swiftly.
Should Jeremy Wright?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. January of last year, I raised with the Prime Minister the issue of inadequate and inaccessible compensation for those injured by COVID vaccinations. The Prime Minister undertook to look into it along with the Health Secretary, but I'm afraid that more than a year later, no significant progress has been made. Now, I know that the Prime Minister and the government recognise the risk this issue poses to public confidence in mass vaccination, all the more important given the Prime Minister's opening remarks in this session, and indeed the pain it's caused to those who've been injured or lost loved ones, only doing what their government asked them to do. So can I ask the Prime Minister please to re-engage with this issue and ensure that his government makes swift progress now in resolving it?
Prime Minister.
Can I thank him for raising it, acknowledge the question he asked me last year in relation to this, and actually pay tribute to him and to Kate for her campaign. It's vital that we look closely at the rare and tragic cases where things went wrong. We mustn't fail to do so, because that will maintain confidence in our health service. Important in relation to COVID, of course, but important, as he rightly points out, today as well. We are committed to looking at reforms to the vaccine damage payment scheme and engaging with those affected to make sure it meets their needs. Specifically, we expect the fourth module of the COVID inquiry to report next month, which will look specifically at the issue that he has raised. And I can reassure him we'll look at other recommendations very closely.
Don Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At the international conference last week, it is clear that mobile phone theft is international organised crime, dragging in young people as young as 14 years old. The Mayor of London and the Met Commissioner have spent money in latest tech to combat this crime, and it's working, but they need help. Manufacturers have the ability to invoke a kill switch so that mobile phones stolen are worthless, but they're not doing it. Samsung's taking it more seriously than Apple. Will the Prime Minister agree with me that if manufacturers do not do this, that the government will implement legislation to design out crime and keep our streets safe?
Prime Minister. Can I thank her for her question and welcome the Mayor of London's crackdown? The Metropolitan Police have made hundreds of arrests, recovered thousands of phones, and mobile phone theft has fallen. I agree with her there's more to do, and we must work with tech industry in order to do so, because if we can reduce the value of stolen phones, it helps bring the business models that drives theft. So we're committed to those working with the industry. We're willing to consider any further necessary action to drive down on this.
Martin Ridley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, the Chancellor announced £2 billion funding for UK sovereign AI and quantum. And DCIT Select Committee was told government procurement will adapt to encourage UK companies to develop sovereign AI systems for government use. In light of these positive events, will the Prime Minister ensure this happens with key digital systems in health, defence and policing made sovereign and not recontracted to politically motivated US companies like Palantir, but re-tendered to UK companies?
Prime Minister. Can I thank him? And as he says, the Chancellor set out yesterday the huge economic opportunities of innovation and AI. We've put £5 billion behind British start-ups, and we'll launch our sovereign AI unit with $500 million to help AI businesses start and grow. Investing the $2 billion that he referenced in our quantum capabilities so we can be the first country in the world to roll out quantum computers at scale. Procurements must be the launch pad for startups, and we're determined to deliver that.
Paul David.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. NHS waiting lists are down 374,000 thanks to this government. While reform would take us back to the days when decent healthcare was only for people who could afford it. Innovation needs to be at the heart of our health service when striving for better patient care. Does the Prime Minister agree with me that Huddersfield Royal Infirmary's partnership with Huddersfield University's Health Innovation Centre is a great example of this? And can he tell me how the government intends to expand the brilliant model of health innovation centres nationally?
Well, it is a good example, and he makes a very powerful point. Thanks to our record investment in the NHS, Mr. Speaker, we have the lowest waiting list for 3 years, the shortest waits in A&E for 4 years, and the fastest ambulance response time for 5 years. Stronger community health services, like the local innovation centre that he mentions, are at the heart of our 10-year plan to go further. But we would not have come this far already, Mr. Speaker, without the decisions made at the budget, which were opposed by all of the parties opposite.
Sir David Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last week, in the government's attack on jury trials, his own backbenchers said the following: unworkable, unjust, unpopular, unnecessary, wrong in principle, wrong in practice, oppressive, authoritarian, and quite honestly, reactionary. 3,000 of his own lawyers, his own fellow lawyers, said juries have not caused this crisis. And the Prime Minister himself, earlier in his career, said scrapping juries enables wrongful convictions. Now the Institute for Government is saying that they are massively overestimating the savings they're going to make on this. So let's be clear. His backbenchers oppose it, his professional colleagues oppose it, and in a previous life, he opposed it. So why is the Prime Minister forcing through a policy that's unjust in principle, unworkable in practice, and opposed by everyone?
Well, Mr. Speaker, we're not abolishing jury trial, and he knows that. I've worked with women and girls who've been victims of sexual violence and rape, who have waited a very, very long time for their cases to come to court. Many of them drop out because of the wait. They have described to me personally the mental anguish that they go through when their case can't get heard for years, when they're told of adjournments time and time again. I'm not prepared to look them in the eye any longer and not do something about it. We owe it to them. This is about getting the balance right. We're not abolishing jury trial. There's about 3% of cases go to jury trial, as he very well knows. 97% don't. After this, it'll be 2.25%. That is the difference between the policy we're advancing and the policy as it now is. So it's not abolishing jury trials, but I'm not prepared to see those who've been victims of violence against women and girls, I'm not prepared to see them repeatedly let down. That's what happened for 14 long years. It's not good enough, and I set my face about doing something about it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I spent 20 years as a secondary school teacher in Wales. Yeah. We worked hard. Yeah. Labour has given them the biggest upgrade of rights in a generation. Yeah. Rights that millions of us fought hard to win. But the honourable member for Clacton wants to chuck it all in the bin. Yeah. Does the Prime Minister stand by these rights and agree that only a vote for Labour in May will enshrine these fundamental workers' rights?
Mr. Speaker, I am very proud of our Employment Rights Act. It delivers strong rights and protections, including for all our brilliant school staff. And reform, he's right, would rip up those protections. They have nothing to offer but grievance and division. And, Mr. Speaker, they have no judgment, because just like the Leader of the Opposition, the member for Clacton said we should do all we can to support the US strikes, and he said, I make that perfectly clear. It was perfectly clear. He got it completely wrong, and perfectly clear that he's now desperately trying to U-turn. Absolutely no judgment, not fit to be Prime Minister.
Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Over the course of the last year, our North Sea neighbours, Norway, have opened 49 drill sites for gas and oil. On our side of the North Sea, the number is 0. Given that our critical reserve of natural gas is down to 2 days and how vulnerable we are, and with talk potentially of energy rationing coming later this year, isn't it time we changed course, got rid of excessive taxation on the exploration companies, opened up the licences, became self-sufficient in natural gas, and with that would come thousands of jobs, increased...
Missed his question. Right. Give me a minute. Yes. Separate legal systems.
Wrong, and perfectly clear that he's now desperately trying to U-turn. Absolutely no judgment, not fit to be Prime Minister.
Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Over the course of the last year, our North Sea neighbours, Norway, have opened 49 drill sites for gas and oil. On our side of the North Sea, the number is 0. Given that our critical reserve of natural gas is down to 2 days and how vulnerable we are, and with talk potentially of energy rationing coming later this year, isn't it time we changed course, got rid of excessive taxation on the exploration companies, opened up the licences, became self-sufficient in natural gas, and with that would come thousands of jobs, increased tax revenues, and cheaper gas prices? Isn't it time we followed Norway?
Mr. Speaker, oil and gas will be part of the mix of our energy for many, many years to come, as I've set out many, many times. But he's now highlighting the consequences of the war that he said we should rush into. He wanted us to go to war. He said it was perfectly clear that we should support the strikes. Then, just like the Leader of the Opposition, a week later, he said, oh, no, I got that one wrong. You can't make mistakes about decisions as serious as committing to war. It's a gross error.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 95% of the food that we import from non-EU countries has lower welfare standards than that of British farmers, costing us millions and putting worse food on our plates. So that's why the Labour Rural Research Group will be shortly launching our spring push on farming profitability to support British farmers by introducing honest labelling and levelling the playing field for trade and regulation. So will the Prime Minister commit to meeting with me and the LRRG to discuss how we can work to back British farmers and improve their profitability?
I'm very happy to discuss that with my honourable friend. We will always protect high welfare standards, and through our food and drink deal, bringing down barriers for farmers selling to our largest market. Mr. Speaker, alongside a record £11.8 billion farming budget and investing in cutting-edge innovation, our farming profitability review is focused on boosting profitability. Now, I've already acted and set up the Farming and Food Partnership Board, investing £30 million in our Farmer Collaboration Fund.
Grangemouth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You did indeed.
Chaos from a botched road realignment affecting Calvert Green, Steeple, Claydon and Twyford. Landowners still awaiting payment for land taken. Woeful underfunding of promised mitigation projects in Wendover in inadequate noise modelling. Now, the Prime Minister and I used to, many years ago, be united in our opposition to HS2. Yeah. He changed. But with the upcoming HS2 reset, will he make a personal intervention to ensure that my constituents and communities living with this hell on earth of a construction project are finally treated with the fairness and respect that they deserve?
Yeah. Prime Minister. Can I thank him for raising this? I do know how much it impacts his constituents and how deeply they feel about it. And it is important, as we reset and clear up the mess that was left, that we bear in mind and have in our mind's eye those that are most affected and make sure that it is fair and that their voices are heard, and we will do so.
Oliver Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Another reset, yeah. It's mental, isn't it? It doesn't seem like it, does it? And where do you think we buy our oil from, Nigel, you fucking idiot? Eco-socialist here. I want to stop oil, all oil and gas, all of it. Our U-turn.
Burnley-Manchester Road station is a key driver for growth. It's Burnley's link to Manchester and Leeds, and more importantly for them, it's their link to Burnley. Which had over 500,000 journeys last year, and yet it's inaccessible. Despite big, empty promises from the last Tory government, we're no further to fixing it. A promise of funding was made, which never came. Will he help me get this delivered and back my campaign to make Burnley-Manchester Road an accessible, modern station fit for Burnley's ambition?
He's a great champion on this issue, and I'll make sure he gets a meeting with the Rail Minister to discuss the detail. The previous government took the decision not to shortlist Burnley-Manchester Road Station for accessibility improvements. We're giving Lancashire Combined County Authority £641 million with the freedom to invest in their priorities, including better accessibility. That's what a Labour government represents, empowering local people to make the best decisions for their local area.
Andrew Snowden.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Every week the Prime Minister comes here and reads out this pre-scripted nonsense that bears no resemblance to the questions he's actually asked. The Leader of the Opposition asked him about Peter Mandelson and he answered about the war in Iran. The Leader of the Opposition asked him about Mandelson again and he answered with an attack on the Shadow Justice Secretary. He was asked about Mandelson again and talked about protests in London. What is he scared of? What is he hiding? For a man who has spent years presenting himself as a forensic investigator, he has certainly had a blind spot to the details for this convicted paedophile with a friend in high Labour places. So I shall ask him again. When he found out that Lord Mandelson had an ongoing relationship with the convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein, did he speak to him personally before appointing him ambassador to the United States?
Mr. Speaker, we've set out the process. It is being put before the House. But I know why they don't want to. They don't want to talk about the war because they supported going into the war without thinking through the consequences. That is a huge error of judgment. I realise they don't want to talk about it ever again. I'm not surprised. Nor do they want to talk about the Shadow Justice Secretary saying that Muslims are not welcome to prayer in Trafalgar Square. She should remove him from their front bench, or I suspect he'll be up there next on that trail.
Matt Bishop.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the Prime Minister mentioned earlier, the CEO of Travelodge has today again refused to attend a meeting with wider members of this House and the other place to answer serious concerns about guest safety and safeguarding. This refusal only deepens the lack of trust in the company's commitment to protecting women and vulnerable guests. Will the Prime Minister meet with me and invite the CEO of Travelodge to discuss the issue, and will he join me in urging the CEO to explain directly to all parliamentarians why she is unwilling to face scrutiny on such an important matter?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank him for raising this, and he's raised this with me personally. Our thoughts are obviously with the victims. I was very concerned to hear that the CEO of Travelodge cancelled the meeting with MPs, and I would urge them to reconsider. That meeting needs to go ahead with relevant MPs and with the relevant minister, and the sooner it goes ahead, the better. And I hope that the CEO of Travelodge is listening to this exchange, and I thank him for raising it, not just on this occasion, but on repeated occasions.
That completes Prime Minister's questions. Let the front benches change over.
How's that doing? That's still charging. Right. Oh, God. Oh. Sorry, I was doing my book while trying to, getting through PMQs. I watched it earlier. And I knew what ones I was going to respond to. I will just see what's actually on the page. My adult colouring book that I'm doing now. Death Before Decaf. Your last beliefs in this. So I'm just choosing the colours for the words, then there's other things on the page as well. So I've got an idea of how I'm going to do it. It's looking good. Don't worry, I will post it in the Discord once I've finished colouring. Oh, it's PMQ's analysis. Oh! Enjoy? Yeah. Oh, there we go. You can just air up there a minute. God, those supports make my hands and wrists sweat quite badly. Oh. What's that? BBC, yeah, that will do. BBC News will do.
Last hour, the UK Health Security Agency has said that the number of meningitis cases that it is investigating as part of an outbreak in Kent has risen by 5 to 20.
It comes ahead of thousands of students in the region being offered a vaccine against meningitis today as part of efforts to control the outbreak. It has so far claimed 2 lives. Well, the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, joins us now. Good morning to you, Mr. Streeting. Let's go.
Sorry. Wes. Hello, odious little prick. Yes, this wanker. Let's see what he has to say, shall we?
Straight in with the latest situation and those new figures that were released by the UK Health Security Agency.
Yeah, so first and foremost, my heart goes out to the families of those 2 young people who've tragically died. I cannot begin to imagine what they're going through. And because those 2 cases throw into sharp relief in the most painful way how serious meningococcal disease can be, there is understandable concern about what this means in terms of risk to others. So let me just tell you where we are and what we're doing. As of this morning, we've got 9 confirmed cases, another 11 suspected cases. We are concentrated on the outbreak and the links to club chemistry in Canterbury, and in particular the risk to people who were there on the 5th, 6th and 7th of March. There are a few things that people can take some reassurance from. Firstly, in all of the cases, from the very first case we became aware of on Friday night into the early hours of Saturday.
I suspect as much. Labour together are nothing but a nest of vipers. All ready to backstab each other to climb the greasy pole. Yes, I wonder what horrible little skeletons is in odious little prick's closet. Is there anything on you, Wes? Do we think? You were a young acolyte of Lord Yum Yum. After all. So there we go. 3 suspected, even though he's not Chief of Staff anymore. More on McSchemy questions. Maybe 4, if we bring in that Welsh Labour person. Carry on, Wes, you odious little bastard.
Today morning, we've been actively tracing the contacts of those cases and proactively offering antibiotics, which are extremely effective. So in over 90% of cases, this is an effective treatment, and we have been proactively and in a preventative way offering those antibiotics to close contacts. We've also stood up antibiotic provision on the university campus itself. We've now, through distribution sites across Canterbury and Broadstairs, issued 2,500 doses of antibiotics. Again, really important because it's extremely effective. And today we're standing up a targeted vaccination campaign on students in halls of residence at the University of Kent, which will reach 5,000 students in terms of that particular cohort. This disease, whilst very serious, is spread through close personal contact. So in terms of the general risk, it's very low, but you can understand why if close personal contact involves things like kissing, or sharing drinks, or sharing vapes, or living in shared accommodation, why we're particularly concerned about people who are at club chemistry on the 5th, 6th and 7th of March, while we're focused on halls of residence and those shared dwellings, and following these cases in a very evidence-led way. So I hope that people are reassured that we're proactively managing it. that the antibiotic provision is there, we're standing up vaccination, and the general risk is low, even if the disease itself is extremely serious.
It will be worrying news, of course, that the numbers overnight have risen up to 20 suspected cases. Just with the way the disease works, how long it takes for symptoms to present, could we expect that number to rise further?
It may well do, and we're following that closely. In a normal year, we would expect to see at least 350 cases, so that's roughly one a day. So I wouldn't be surprised, for example, if in different parts of the country we see cases presented that are unconnected to this particular outbreak in Canterbury. And in every single one of those cases, we will be testing whether there is a potential link back to the cluster in Canterbury. What's worried us about the Canterbury outbreak is the pace and extent of the spread of the disease. That is unprecedented, and that's why we are being so proactive in the provision of antibiotics, because they're an effective treatment, but also standing up vaccination at a pace and in a way that we wouldn't normally do. And I hope that that will give some reassurance to people. And to your viewers watching this morning who were at Club Chemistry on the 5th, 6th and 7th of March, or any of the young people watching in and around the Canterbury area who maybe know someone who's been affected or are showing symptoms. Firstly, those sites in Canterbury and Broadstairs are open to people to come forward and get antibiotics. But in terms of symptoms, then people can and obviously should call NHS 111 to ask for health advice, or in an emergency, dial 999 and access emergency services.
And of course, you will know the focus obviously is on the situation in Kent, but a lot of the students that we've been talking to want to go home, their families want them home. Is there a concern that this might spread geographically?
No, and lots of students from Kent have already gone home. It's exam week at the university this week, so there are still quite a few students around sitting their exams. Lots of students will have gone home. And look, that's fine, that's okay. What we need people to do is to think through, in terms of their individual situations, were they at Club Chemistry on the 5th, 6th and 7th of March? The answer to that question is yes. The sensible thing to do is to access antibiotics. And if you're one of those students who's gone home, you're thinking, well, I don't really want to schlep all the way back to Canterbury or down to Broadstairs, then people can access those antibiotics via their GP. And we've been in contact with GP services across the country to facilitate that. But in terms of students, for example, thinking, is it right for me to go and sit my exam this week? Or if they're at schools and the college in the Canterbury area, thinking, is it right for me to go to school or to go to college? The answer is yes. People can and should still do that. The reassuring thing here is that this disease spreads through close personal contact. So it is things like kissing, sharing drinks, sharing vapes. On the latter, that's not a sensible thing to do regardless. But if, for example, people are thinking, well, what about I was sat on a train or travelling back home? Those aren't things we're worried about. It's close personal contact of the kind that I've described, which is why we are focused on and concerned about episodes linked to Club Canterbury, because those are the sorts of behaviours, sharing vapes, sharing drinks, dare I say it, kissing, those are the sort of things we might expect to see happening in a nightclub setting. And that might explain, although we'll be obviously looking carefully at this, that might explain why this outbreak is different from the sorts of episodes we've seen before.
You've declared it as a national incident. Perhaps you could explain what that means, because that gives the impression, of course, that the whole country should worry. And also whether you think now you've talked to the JCVI about looking again at some kind of a catch-up vaccination programme for those who weren't vaccinated before 2015, whether you think that now is the right course of action.
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked this question. So firstly, it's really important for me to stress, this is not currently a national incident. We declare a national incident when nationwide we've got a health emergency that's putting critical stress and pressure on the health system. We declare a national incident to manage in that way, and we make a whole range of different choices about health service provision, which might include, for example, standing down planned elective treatment in order to focus on emergency response. That in no way applies here. I think what's been confused a bit, and we've seen this reflected a bit on the front pages today, is this is the national response, or the response is being managed nationally. And that's why I, as the Health Secretary, have been on top of this since I was first informed of the risk first thing Sunday morning. But we've got our national team at the UK Health Security Agency, as well as NHS England and Department for Health and Social Care, helping to support and manage this nationally, including working with our friends at the Department for Education in terms of supporting schools, the college and the universities in the Canterbury area. So we're managing this nationally. That's not the same as a national incident of the type we saw during the COVID pandemic, for example. And I hope, again, that distinct...
Hence the name Odious Little Prick. Yeah. Rejoice, comrades. Reza Lindsay. Hi, Reza. Useless fuckers, exactly. Exactly. Welcome in. How are you doing? Great to see you, comrade. He's nearly done.
Between national incident and national response is one that people will find reassuring. We ought to be worried as a country if there's a national incident. That doesn't apply here. We should be reassured that there is a national response, and that while this is focused on Canterbury, we are managing this nationally, supporting local health leaders, supporting local education leaders to make sure we're getting the right care, the right treatment and the right vaccination to the right people in a timely fashion.
All is well. Bit chilly here. But I've put the heating on. I'm feeling a lot better now. This one knuckle here on my left hand, this one right here, is feeling a bit stiff and sore. I'm massaging it every so often. I don't know what its problem is. Arthritis is fun at times. Trying to figure out why it's doing this. Typing too much? That's the one I've come up with. Probably typing a fair amount. Itchy forehead. Give me a minute. Itchy. Itchy. Fuck it, we'll go the same route as Helena did earlier on and do the one from Peston. Fuck it. Mick Lynch is on. Go.
Political agitators who probably aren't Banksy, though I doubt they'll confirm it, lived...
Ah!
Hello and welcome. Coming...
This is the one Helena was reacting to earlier on before I went live. So there we go, Layla Moran, Mick Lynch and Maria Caulfield. You get a mad Scottish woman response instead of a based English bird response. Posh bird. Now, if anyone calls me a posh bird, I'm just going to break out in fits of laughter. I ain't posh. Oh, you're on Lefty Stream. He does PMQs. How's Lefty? Praise be my left eye. He is awesome. Fuck it, carry on, Robert.
Up tonight, how much poorer is Trump's war making us? I'll ask one of the world's top economic brains, Jim O'Neill. Did the Chancellor just announce plans to reunite us with the European Union? I'll ask the Europe Minister, Nick Thomas-Symonds. Pippa and Screeny have a scoop about Angela Rayner, the former Labour Deputy Leader that many Labour members want to see as our next Prime Minister.
HMRC are almost done with their tax investigation, opening the way for a possible leadership challenge.
And throughout the show, three political agitators who probably aren't Banksy, though I doubt they'll confirm it. Lib Dem MP Layla Moran, ex-Union leader Mick Lynch and Reform UK's Maria Caulfield. Watcher, here is a question for Keir Starmer. Does he realise that the Iran war has changed?
I love how these shows are all in London, truly no attempt to spread it whatsoever. Yeah. We're treated nothing but... we're treated nothing like... we're treated like colonials, Reza. We don't... They don't give a fuck about us. At least with QT, they go around the country, and the same here for debate night, they go around Scotland and stuff. But they're all based in the major population centres. You know, like BBC Scotland, Glasgow, based in the biggest city. Lots of areas do get left out. I can't have a crafty snack without a dog nearby watching me. Rejoice, comrades. Orchestran. Note to darling. Hydration. Try not to bang yourself. Oh, my sister's in my Discord now. She'll not say anything. Like, she won't type, she won't put anything into the Discord. But she's came in. We are indeed, my darling. We are indeed. They just use us for plunder. It sucks. There's ones worse than him, I guess. Piers, anyone? God almighty. Don't worry, we'll do a speed run through this. Hopefully, I'll try to minimise the exposure to pesting. We're here to hear what Leila Moran and Mick has to say. And see what Pippa says about Raina and stuff. No thanks on Piers, yeah. Don't worry, I don't go anywhere near the fucker. Only whenever he's on, like, award-winning Kerbalism. Which he sometimes is. Oh.
Almost everything about his premiership. His response will be a challenge for him, but also an opportunity after what has been a pretty miserable debut as Prime Minister, because the threat to our security...
Or bitch slap him in Minecraft. Yeah. Or just basically turn around and say to him, shut the fuck up, yours. Go me.
And our prosperity, caused by Trump's offensive against Iran, will, in many voters' minds, perhaps in most voters' minds, wipe out their anger or disappointment with him after 18 months of tax rises, U-turns and Mandelson. So, as oil and gas prices soar, as shortages are likely to emerge in everything from petrol to semiconductors, one question is whether he'll be able to protect living standards and jobs without putting undue pressure on the public finances. The war has dramatic...
Sovereign currency issuer. We can borrow from the markets, tell them we need this money because we're going to do blah, blah, and blah. Put money back into the country, back into the economy, raise the living standards of us, and they get it back in tax receipts. Don't do what Lettuce Lady done. I could actually see that happening, Reza. You don't know, remember, it's the last person that whispers in the demented old bastard's ear that he goes with. Having them out of NATO would actually be quite good. Yeah, and we'd get... yeah, we don't have an independent foreign policy. We haven't for decades at this point. Oh, Jake's went live. Ooh. That might actually work, Reza. Post it in the chat then, Omaha. Carry on.
Ramifications for public spending choices too, because what we've witnessed, even if we didn't know it already, is that our military is chronically under-resourced. So the 10-year project...
Blame the Tories. If you want something funny, check out Mark Francois on LBC's Cross Questions. That little section's only 11 minutes long. I can't remember the name of the fucking Lib Dem motherfucker. It's got Diane as well, so we've got Francois, we've got Diane, and some Lib Dem person, and the political editor or political correspondent for LBC, a blonde looking lassie. Those hashtags are funny. If you're in the Discord, Reza, post them in there. Do I have a memes channel? I don't remember. If you can't find an appropriate channel, General will be fine.
To replenish is almost comically too long, and the failure yet to publish the promised defence investment plan is almost scandalous. In such adversity, however, is Starmer's last chance. Trump may say he's no Churchill, but this is not a moment for Churchill, who was notoriously incompetent with money. What's required, who's required, is a PM who can reassure with calm, dogged crisis management. Now, there was a time when that seemed to be his skill set. Let's see if it still is. Pippa.
Well, I'm going to talk to you about Keir Starmer's problems at home and the possibility that he'll face a challenge to his leadership. I've got an exclusive story tonight that Angela Rayner's allies are increasingly confident that an HMRC investigation into her tax affairs will conclude this side of the May elections. Now, that means that the former deputy now has a route back to frontline politics at a perilous moment for the Prime Minister. Labour is expected to suffer catastrophic losses across the country. MP...
Or not. Ta-da! Much better. Pippa. Pippa Crerar was born and brought up in the Western Isles. She's up the west coast from me. Yeah, she's Scottish. She went to Glasgow University, I think. She used to be the main political... I don't know if she still is, actually. She used to be the main political editor for The Guardian. I think she still works for The Guardian. Thank you, Omaha.
French President Emmanuel Macron stood up in a cabinet meeting and said something that should terrify Washington. He said France will never take part in operations to open or liberate the Strait of Hormuz in the current context. Trump had just spent days begging NATO allies to join a naval coalition. Germany said no, the UK said no, Italy, Spain, Japan, South Korea all said no. But France's refusal isn't just about one country walking away. France can say no because they've built the infrastructure to keep Europe stable without Middle Eastern oil, and that changes everything. Let me show you what's actually happening here, because this isn't about diplomatic disagreement. This is about France positioning itself as Europe's energy anchor while the US fights wars over fossil fuel choke points. I'm Elle of Houseville on YouTube. I have a PhD in computer science, and I use data analysis to spot patterns in geopolitics and economics. The Strait of Hormuz carries about 20% of global oil shipments. When Iran effectively closed it in early March after the US-Israel strikes, oil prices jumped 40%. European natural gas prices shot up 63% in a week. The US started a war without consulting allies, triggered an energy crisis, and then expected Europe to send warships to clean it all up. Trump called it shocking that allies refused. He called NATO has a very bad future if they don't help. He called UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer no Churchill. He said Macron will be out of office very soon. And then when nobody joined, Trump pivoted to saying we don't need too much help, we don't need any help. But here's what most coverage is missing, I think. France didn't refuse to protect French interests. France refused because they're already protecting European interests by running the nuclear fleet that powers the continent while the US fights for oil. France generates 67% of its electricity from nuclear reactors, 57 reactors across 18 sites, with a total capacity of 62.9 gigawatts. That gives France one of the lowest carbon electricity systems in Europe at 85 grams of CO2 per kilowatt hour and the cheapest electricity prices on the whole continent. But here's the critical piece. France isn't just powering itself. In 2024, France exported 103 terawatt hours of electricity to its neighbors, a 48% increase from the year before. That electricity went to Belgium, Germany, Spain, Switzerland, the UK, and Italy. France is literally keeping the lights on across Europe. When we dig into the actual production numbers, France increased electricity generation by 45 terawatt hours in 2024, while domestic consumption stayed relatively flat. Nuclear output went from 320 terawatt hours in 2023 to 361 terawatt hours in 2024. That surplus doesn't disappear. It flows across borders through interconnectors, stabilizing grids from Brussels to Madrid. Just think about what that means strategically. While oil prices spike 40% because of a conflict in the Middle East, France's electricity costs barely move because nuclear fuel costs are stable and domestic. When Macron refuses to send French ships to the Strait of Hormuz, he is not abandoning Europe. He's protecting the infrastructure that actually keeps Europe running. And France is doubling down. In February 2026, France published its third multi-annual energy program, setting nuclear production targets at 380 to 420 terawatt hours per year by 2030.
You're not being doomer. Don't worry, Reza. I'm pessimistic as well, to a certain degree. Pessimism. It's always good to have a bit of pessimism, especially in this cursed timeline. You're not alone. Hopefully I've built a good community here, and I can try and give you hope, or at least try to educate you. Thank you for this channel, by the way, Omaha. Elle's amazing.
2035. The plan calls for extending existing reactor lifespans to 50 or 60 years, constructing 6 new EPR2 reactors, and potentially building 8 more after that. President Macron plans to begin construction on the first reactor before his term ends in May 2027. And this isn't just French energy policy. France is pushing for the EU to recognize nuclear power on equal footing with renewables, advocating for a decarbonized energy directive instead of renewables-only targets. And critically, Germany announced in May 2025 that it would no longer oppose French efforts to incorporate nuclear into European legislation, which is a massive shift for a country that closed its last nuclear plants in 2023. Meanwhile, the UK is building the other pillar of European energy independence. The UK just secured Europe's largest offshore wind auction, 8.4 gigawatts of capacity, enough to power 12 million homes. North Sea oil and gas production has dropped 75% from 1999 to 2024, so the UK isn't clinging to fossil fuels either. They're actually racing towards renewables as well. By the way, if you want to sharpen your ability to read between the lies on stories like this, I wrote a book called Awake, the Practice of Critical Thinking in an Age of Self-Lies. It's available as an ebook and audiobook. Subscribers get 10% off, and you can grab the first chapter for free in the description below. So what does this mean for American power? When Trump begged for a coalition, he revealed dependence ultimately. The US needed help securing a waterway that France and the UK have already replaced with domestic infrastructure. Europe's energy transition isn't just about climate. It is about severing the structural link to Middle Eastern oil that has defined Western foreign policy for the last 50 years. And look at how this played out. Countries like India, Turkey, and Pakistan negotiated directly with Iran for safe passage through the strait. 2 Indian flag tankers crossed safely, a Turkish vessel got clearance, Pakistan launched its own escort operation. Europe is choosing the same path. Macron said France would only consider joining an escort mission after the fighting ends, and only with Iranian involvement in the framework. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas said there is no appetite in the EU to join Trump's coalition, calling it not Europe's war. That phrasing matters a huge deal. We have a separate video on that as well. Europe is treating the US-Iran conflict as someone else's problem, Even though European energy prices spiked, the calculation is essentially negotiate for passage if needed or wait it out, because Europe's baseline energy security runs through French nuclear reactors and UK offshore wind farms, not the Strait of Hormuz. And from a currency perspective, this accelerates dollar displacement. Iranian oil still flows. 25 tankers laden with Iranian crude are operating in the Persian Gulf, often selling to China in yuan. Meanwhile, France is exporting electricity across Europe in euros, and the UK is building wind capacity that reduces fossil fuel imports denominated in dollars. The US built a global system where controlling Middle Eastern oil justified military presence, alliance commitments, and dollar dominance. France and the UK built nuclear and wind infrastructure.
Because Big Daddy Donald has to be in charge of everything, apparently. That's one of my favourite scenes from that one, and the skyscraper in New York getting done in as well. They've got a better energy infrastructure than us. I must admit that, yeah, and they've got lots of nuclear power. I'd want to take advantage of our natural assets, which is basically we'd be brilliant with renewables, like on and offshore. We're already at capacity with hydro. Do effing tidal. Getting energy policy from Westminster, getting them to devolve it to us, so we can actually make it better for the Scottish people. De-link it from the price of fossil fuels, bring down our electricity costs. Scotland gets scalped the most. I wish Cholesterol would do us a favour. He's a demented old bastard anyway. His brain's probably like soup. Yeah. My God, do not tell me what year that movie came out.
Instead, so they're not sending ships. And here's what I think is going to happen next. I think France will formalize its role as Europe's energy backbone. I'm watching for expanded interconnector capacity between France and its neighbors, allowing even more nuclear capacity to flow across borders.
96. Yeah. I was 17. Fucking hell. Fucking 30 years ago. Yeah, 30 years ago.
France's new reactors aren't just about French demand. They're about positioning France as the reliable baseload supplier for a continent transitioning away from fossil fuels. The UK will probably continue scaling offshore wind to complement French nuclear. Together, they create a European energy system that doesn't structurally depend on Middle Eastern oil or American military guarantees to access it. Germany, which historically opposed nuclear power, is already shifting position to accommodate this new reality. And the next time the US starts a war in an oil-producing region and asks Europe to help secure energy supplies, the answer will be the same. No, because we build different infrastructure. Trump spent his first term complaining that NATO allies don't pay their fair share. Now NATO allies are declining to pay because they've built energy systems that make American resource wars unnecessary for European security. That is not alliance drift. That is Europe choosing French nuclear and UK wind over American military logistics. The transatlantic partnership was built on shared dependence. Europe needed American security guarantees to access energy. America needed European support for resource wars. France just broke that equation with 57 nuclear reactors, 103 terawatt-hours of cross-border electricity exports, and the willingness to tell Trump no while keeping Europe's lights on. Right now, go watch the video on your screen about how the petrodollar is dying at the Strait of Hormuz, as Iran only allows safe passage to ships trading in yuan. This is still happening and is shifting the dollar away from being the world's reserve currency. The pieces are moving faster than people realize. Thank you all so much for watching. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.
Been going for 3.5 hours. Fuck it, will I... Nah, fuck it, I'll do pasting. Sort it.
Are increasingly confident that an HMRC investigation into her tax affairs
will cover
conclude
this bit.
This side of the May elections. Now that means that the former deputy now has a route back to frontline politics at a perilous moment for the Prime Minister. Labour is expected to suffer catastrophic losses across the country. MPs who backed away from triggering a contest last month might not be so reluctant this time. In a speech last night, Rayner warned that the very survival of the Labour Party is at stake and that the government is running out of time. But a challenge wouldn't be straightforward. Starmer has insisted that he's not going anywhere and would fight any contest. Now, Downing Street insiders tell me he won a big personal mandate for change at the last election and he intends to deliver on it, however hard that might be. Let's take a look at this Salvation poll of party members for Labour list. It shows why Rayner's allies think that she'll go for
Yeah, I'm with you, Reza. Raynering on their parade. It will be glorious. It will be glorious. She rubs her hands in glee. Or cackles like Mr. Burns. Starmer, fight my bony pimply arse. Head-to-head contest versus Keir. Right.
for it. In any head-to-head contest between Starmer and likely rivals, only Rayner or Andy Burnham would beat him. But with the Prime Minister so focused on the Middle East crisis and the economic fallout at home, well, voters feel now is the time for a destabilising leadership battle. Robert.
So, Pippa, when I saw Angela Rayner yesterday criticising the Home Secretary's immigration plans, I have to tell you, I thought this looked like the launch of her personal manifesto. So is she going to run?
Well, what we've heard from Angela Rayner since she stood down as Deputy Prime Minister is some very specific policy interventions on areas that she thinks she can nudge the government a little bit over the line. Things like workers' rights and leasehold reform. And then last night, as you say, she made this very personal intervention with what felt like quite a distinct criticism of the Prime Minister herself. Her allies tell me that she feels the party needs to go in a different direction. Now, what they also say is that she won't engineer a contest. So how we end up getting one, we'll have to wait and see, because, of course, more than 80 Labour MPs would be needed to put their name to a letter to trigger one. And if Angela Rayner isn't going to do it, then who is? Is it going to be a stalking horse? What's going to happen? But I'm told that she will weigh up a range of personal...
My guess for stalking horse, Steve Reid, because I don't trust the bastard. Well, I don't trust the bastard, but I think he might be the stalking horse. Or if you want someone who truly stalks, we know him, we love him, we call him the Glaswegian Ghoul here, Pat McFadden. Could he be the stalking horse? I will let you all ruminate on that. No, if she runs, I can see her destroying him. Yeah. I didn't know it was 80. I was still in the Labour Party when Keir was running to become leader after Jam Man. And I taking a step back essentially, and my sister, she's no longer in the Labour Party now, but then she was, and she asked me, Katie, who? Bergen. Bert Bergen. She went with, fuck, I can't remember. No, I think she might have actually went with Rayner. The government truly is like high school. It could be the head mean girls today. Reza, I love you. Yeah, it's just like that.
And political considerations, and crucially, will take the temperature across the Labour movement, across the party, in terms of the breadth of support for her, and then we'll come to conclusion. But in short, I think the answer is yes.
Yeah, that sounded like quite a long she's going to run, but anyway.
And now, Mick, I'm interested, do you think that Angela Rayner would make a better leader of the Labour Party than Keir Starmer?
Well, I certainly think we need a debate about what kind of Labour Party we're getting and what kind of government we've got, because it's lacked the dynamism, it's lacked the idea of change being felt by working people across the country. So there's got to be a battle of ideas, and often that means a battle of who's going to be presenting their programme. I'm not worried about who the leader is. I'm worried about what the leadership does with the Labour Party and with that mandate you mentioned. And so far, they haven't done enough. We need a change in direction for the Labour government. And if that means there's got to be a challenge to the leadership, then so be it. I wish them every success.
Do you think they can do enough to win back progressive voters that are being tempted by parties like the Lib Dems or the Greens?
Yeah, I think they can if there's a strong message, because we need a Labour movement on the move. That means being close to the trade unions,
yeah, that
having
tracks,
a message
Omaha.
about housing, about the cost of living crisis, about the feeling of insecurity that we've got in this country all around the place. So all the big issues, Labour need to have a strong and coherent message that goes across all of the issues and all of the departments in government. And that's what I think is lacking, is individual measures all the time from this party. And often people are profoundly disappointed by what they hear.
So do you think Keir Starmer is over for him? It's finished? Is there anything...
I don't think it's over. But if he wants to win any putative election challenge, he's going to have to change his message, because he certainly wouldn't win it on the record in government and his style and his personality and his record on U-turns and all the rest of it that we've heard. He won't win an election defending his record.
Maria, if I could ask you something. Wearing your Reform UK hat, there's no question that Angela Rayner is a better communicator than Keir Starmer. Do you think she would be more of a threat to you?
I think that Labour have lost the public, to be honest, and it almost doesn't matter who's leading them at the moment, because the British public, you know, since the election, they were promised so much in that manifesto, and Angela Rayner stood on that manifesto. And as you know, it's been said, there's been U-turn after U-turn, and Angela was Deputy Prime Minister for a lot of that. So I think she would be better than Keir Starmer for sure, but I'm not sure that the British public. I think whatever Labour said, similar position to where the Conservatives were before the.
Stay hydrated. Self-care is good care. Take your meds if you need to take any. Stay based. Free Palestine. And keep an eye on Angela Rayner. Night, Omaha. Oh, someone on YouTube. You're never voting for them again. Good for you. Vote Green, please. Or if you get a your party person, if you're that way inclined. Yeah, we are done with the pair of them. Their parties are literally dying right in front of us. It is fun. It is brilliant. I love it. I am here for it.
Last general election is the public have stopped listening to Labour.
Can I just ask you, Layla? I mean, look, we may not be engaged directly in the attacks on Iran, but this is a time of war. It is a time of great uncertainty. If Labour were to change their leader, their Prime Minister, in these circumstances, what do you think the British public would say?
Oh.
I think on...
Hello, I'll do my standard introduction. Well, for both channels. Hello, my name is Katie Marshall 4340 on YouTube, or Madcat79 Scotty on the Twitch. I am a Scottish disabled Marxist streamer where I try to talk about health and disability issues, but I also do politics and history. Welcome in, welcome in. So we're just going to do this bit about Angela Rayner possibly being the replacement for old Kid Starver. Wonder what she would be like. First Labour woman PM. They've had interim female party leaders during during leadership campaigns and stuff. Harriet Harman has done it. I can't remember who else, but we've never had a female Labour leader ever. Is the Labour Party misogynistic? Never been known.
You know how Labour are doing out there, and we are, in the run-up to May elections. I'm doing door knocking, not just in places like Oxfordshire, where we think we're going to do quite well against what is left of the Tory party there, but also places like Birmingham, where actually are classically very Labour-leaning areas, who actually that support has fallen away. So I think it's really striking that there are a lot of votes up for...
Fallen away? It's nosedived, Leila. In certain areas of the country, and I'm talking UK-wide here, in certain areas of the country, the popularity of the Labour Party's nosedive off a fucking cliff. Yeah.
Grabs, and it's not clear to any party where they're going to go. So I would agree that it's a battle of ideas, not just in the Labour Party, but I would also say to all political parties right now, the world is changing very fast, and with this Iran crisis, I think not just our country is going to be changed very fast as a result. I think the ramifications of what we're seeing could last globally for a number of years still to come. Where we're all going to end up at the end of it, I'm not totally sure right now.
Well, yeah, I think you're...
Yeah, they're never getting... They're losing Scotland as well. We're getting pissed off with them. And it looks like the Welsh are of the same mind. They've lost Scotland before, obviously. SNP are quite dominant up here now, especially at Holyrood level. Fucking hell, missus. Tell that one to get to fuck.
You're right, there's tons more to talk about with all of you. I am now going to, though, go to my first specialist guest, Jim O'Neill, described as an economic super brain, so I need an answer to this, which is,
We've seen an absolute surge in the oil price, gas price, disruptions to really vital supplies. So how bad are the economic consequences from this war going to be for the UK, for the world?
Yep, they're fucked.
I don't know, is my honest answer. And I've been through a lot of energy crises. I actually did my PhD during the second one on it.
Yeah.
And one of the things I learned was be a bit careful about having too confident a view about where oil prices are going to go.
Yeah.
And the one saving grace, which is why I think until at least a few hours ago, markets in generally were relatively sanguine, despite...
That's all I wanted to cover about that one, just a bit about Rayner. I am so sorry, 101 PC Gamer. You've came in a bit late. I've been fucking hell, nearly 4 hours. I'm trying to keep my streams at between 3.5 and 4 hours long. Don't you worry. Election mega stream. Polls close 10 PM, Thursday, 7th of May. Your lass will be going live shortly after that. Oh, well, just shortly before it. Will they do an exit poll? I'm not sure. Fuck it, I'll go live at about 10 to 10 anyway. So, you'll get me for hours. Because I'm going to be covering the constituency vote. See how big a bloodbath it is for Labour and Tory and possibly Reform. I hope they don't get any fucking constituencies. I really do. And no threat from Alba. Kind of withered on the vine after their cult leader passed away. Thank you, Reza. It's always brilliant to have you here, as always. Right, let's see who we can raid. I'll move my mic back there. You go there. Panel. Raid. Ooh, Raptor's still going. Jake. Segway. Sad girl. Raptor! Let's go and say hi to Raptor, shall we? I will be back, don't you worry. Question time. Later on. It's 3:30 in the morning. And I'll be going live at like midnight or something, so a good few hours. Oh. No. Whoops. Good luck, my dear. Raptor! Oh, motherfucker. Right. Damn it, I can't cancel now. We'll go to Raptor. I went to Xerxes last night.
Big knobby pine that's standing up there. I saw this big shadow. It was gray and it stood real tall, but what I really
White people.
culture. Mad Cat, thank you for the raid.
Like looking through